Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. Episode 271, The New 52 is here. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot segulent, and the Duke of you know. Jim, on this episode, we're going to get into it rather quickly, because this is a special bonus show that we're releasing this week. We already had a regular episode, and I wanted to get this one out fast, because these are the two hottest books for DC fans in ages. I mean, this changes everything. Flashpoint number 5 and Justice League number 1. This episode's going to be loosely edited because of the fact that we're recording this tonight, we're getting it out tonight, so more so than any episode, like usually I'm pretty much a stickler for taking out any pauses and things like that. This one is going to be very loosely edited, and we appreciate your patience on this one. I've never released one like this, but it was really with the intention of getting it to you in a timely fashion. We're doing kind of a marathon here to scramble and get this to you quickly. So I'll be up getting this together, and it's going to be up tonight. Yay! We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Want to shout out really quick show sponsors DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is once again offering that 50% off all issue number 2s. InStockTrades.com is your source for ordering trades and hardcovers. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. I also want to shout out that DCBService.com is one of those DC Comics digital partners through Comixology. You can go right to their website, you can click on the link, and you can order your digital comics right from their website. Please consider doing that and supporting them that way because they are a show sponsor for us. So please consider supporting them. I just think this whole digital thing, I'm glad to see that there's a retail partnership going on there with it, and I'm really excited about it. I've already purchased from them, from the digital site, and I do encourage anybody else who's doing it digitally, or if you're doing paper, you can't beat that 50% off deal they got going right now for the paper. So that's DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Where'd the go?
I decided to drop it this time. Because you mentioned it last time, I figured I'll drop it this time.
I was looking for it, too.
I'm going to start dropping words just periodically.
Just to see if I'm catching on?
Yeah, to see if you're paying attention.
I am. Let's talk some comics.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Jim, this is our big discussion, and it was funny. Last week when we talked about this, I said we really need to do like a special episode about this and try to get it out right away because this is going to be the hot topic. It was funny how, like, the past 2 weeks for me, I don't know if you've had this experience, I've been excited about this and intrigued about it, and probably I've like a lot of emotions where, first when they made the announcements and they were talking about all the changes, I got worried about titles that were going to be lost. What does this mean for my characters? And then, as we started talking more about it on the show, and, I started thinking back to times where characters have been relaunched and how much I've enjoyed those when they have happened, I started to started to calm down and started to get into discussing it. But the last 2 weeks, I don't know if you felt the same thing. For me, there's been an energy about all this, an excitement that's been building. They started announcing these like midnight events and things like that, and I'm like, and then there was radio appearances from Jeff Johns and Jim Lee. There was more interviews popping up. The promotional machine started to get going. But to actually hear the creators talk about, and I'm not talking about just Jeff Johns and Jim Lee, the creators on the 52 titles, the stuff that's been going on the Source blog where they've been talking about that, this has really just gotten me like pumped up for this whole thing in a way that is like a complete 180 from where I was from the first announcement. What's it been like for you the past couple weeks? Has it been any different or?
Yeah, pretty calm. Seriously, I think some of the people I work with are ready to kill me. Though I got a couple of them interested in reading, so I'm going to let them borrow some of my books and see what they think of this. But yeah, I know my family is sick of hearing me talk about it. Though Brother Bill's picking up a couple titles, so that's kind of cool. He and I have been going back and forth about different options, and hey, you got to try this. I think you'd really dig this, and so it's kind of a. It's been one of those things where it has been a complete roller coaster. When they first announced it, I was scared because I wasn't sure how the fan base would take it, and that was my biggest fear. There's thinking that everything's changing, and and yes, sometimes change is a good thing, but it's always scary whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. There's always that level of fear. And I was kind of worried how people would react to it, because this is a huge, gutsy move on their part. So this isn't something you can take lightly. They're going all in here, and it's, just seeing the energy that's built on since they first made that first announcement to present day has me really feeling good, really looking good. The fact that we both ordered through DCBS, but they come, on Thursday, and we didn't want to wait till Thursday. We wanted to get the books on Wednesday, and I had to go to 2 comic shops to get Justice League #1. The first shop completely sold out of it. The second one was almost completely sold out of it. So for me, seeing that in 2 shops, that was awesome. Just the fact that people are going out there, and they both shops ordered heavy.
Wait. I'm laughing because you're sitting here saying, we didn't want to wait till Thursday, so Wednesday. I went on Tuesday night at midnight.
Yeah.
I didn't want to wait till Thursday. I went on Tuesday night at midnight. And, it's one of those things where that's how excited I got. I was thinking I actually took I tried to take a nap, but I couldn't. So I think I slept maybe 45 minutes or something, got a little quick power nap or something. I did fall asleep, but it was a quick snooze. The anticipation and the excitement of this. Comic Heaven in Willoughby, Ohio, which is comicheaven.com, is a local comic shop here. And I went there for their midnight sale, and I thought it was really cool. I ended up getting one of those lead. It's the lead Eagle Moss figurines. They had the Superman statue, the gold classic one with him with the eagle on his arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had that there, and I ended up grabbing that to add, because I've got a few of those, and I wanted to add that to my collection. Honestly, it was an impulse purchase there, though, because I was at that event, and I grabbed the 2 titles, Flashpoint 5 and Justice League #1. I was so excited. I got home 1:15 maybe. I knew I was going to want – the reason why I wanted to take a nap is I knew I was going to want to read them right away. And I'm I've got to teach the next morning, so I wanted to make sure that, obviously my job comes first, so I wanted to make sure that I was alert for that. I went home and I read Flashpoint #5, and then I read Justice League #1 and liked it so much, which, spoiler warning, I liked it. I liked it so much, and I read it again immediately. And I was ready to put it back in the drawer, and I'm just going to go to bed now and everything like that. And I so wanted to reread it again that I just pulled it out and I just read it again. I'm there's no way I'm going to go to sleep now anyway, because I'm so pumped up over this. So I read it a second time. And, it was just the whole event, the build up to it, their promotions, I think, have been really excellent. One thing I wanted to, it's funny. I was thinking the whole gutsy thing too, and I agree with that to a certain extent, because I do agree actually, not to a certain extent, totally agree with that. It's a very gutsy move what they're doing. But, I guess the thing that the everything changes thing, I think they've done a really good job of saying, hey, this is what's successful right now. Let's keep that foundation in place, and not totally alienate those fans of, our top selling books. But let's take a look at the rest of the line and find a way to make changes to our top selling books so they can thematically be a part of all this, while at the same time, freshening up the line, getting things exciting. It's been a very careful, because when we talk about Flashpoint 5, we're going to have to talk about the change and how seamlessly it happened in that issue, because we see the change happen. And I think that's probably what we should do at this point. Do you have anything else you want to say about the lead-up or build to this? I'm sorry, I cut you off when you were talking about the 2 comic shops, so is there anything else you wanted to discuss about that?
Not really. It's one of the things I do appreciate, and I'm glad that, and DC has done, I think, a pretty good job of this, especially in recent years, where they're putting out there, and they're admitting strengths, they're admitting weaknesses, and one of the things they're not hiding behind is saying, "Oh no, things are going great." We just decided to tell the story. They're like, "No, we're having sales issues. We weren't having the same spikes, so we needed to make a change." And I think for me, open and honesty from the publisher is always a great thing, and just that same open honesty that we're getting when they're doing all these different interviews, they're doing all these other, I don't feel like they're keeping anything from me. There's some stuff story-wise that they're not going to tell me now because they're not going to spoil it, but operationally wise, I feel like I have an understanding what their mindset is. So the fact that there's not that mystery is something that I really appreciate and has actually been one of the big calming factors to me. I know they have a plan. They're not flying by the seat of their pants. They're not winging it saying, let's try this.
Well, they've given books long runs. I mean, decent runs. Some books 3-year runs, plus that have been very critically acclaimed, that haven't generated the sales numbers that they were expecting. And it isn't an issue of quality of the book, it's an issue of sales numbers, you're right. And that's something where you got to take a look at. Line-wise, they're looking at and saying, hey, we've got top quality talent. We've got the opportunity to really take these ideas and do something exciting with them. Let's do it. Let's, really take this talent, put all of our heads together and say, how can we generate a lot of buzz to really try and draw people back? I was thrilled at how many people I saw at the midnight sale. Because, you figure it's midnight on a Tuesday. Like me, most of the people in there are working the next day. There was a real great draw there that night. But then what you were telling me about the sellouts at the shops you were at, figuring that Justice League #1, this is Justice League. So this isn't just some kind of random book, that doesn't, this is a top tier concept title. So the fact that the shops around us were selling out of this has me thrilled and giddy. I think that's really great. I like Justice League so much, I ended up, not only did I buy the issue at Comic Heaven, but I bought it digitally from DCB Service on their site. And that's something I do want to actually, before we even kick into this, the day and date digital now, along with that, you're going to notice at dcbservice.com, and your local comic shops and stuff like that too, they have digital links now, and you're not paying any more for the comic to buy them from those comic shops. So if you're using the digital app, what I'm really encouraging people to do, obviously I'm going to pump and say, please, DCB Service, support our show sponsor, but if you have a local comic shop that's a favorite, please support them too, and use the apps from their site, because they get a kickback from that. And it's a great way to support your local comic shop while enjoying the digital. That has me wanting to buy more digital, and I have been. The past couple days, I've been buying more digital issues, not just DC. They have links to the Comixology app in general, and you can buy anything, in their catalog right from those websites and then give a kickback to your comic shops without hurting yourself with this, you're not paying more. You know what I mean? So it's a nice win-win. So please do that. And remember to support your local retailers, including our show sponsor, dcbservice.com, by using those apps. Because I think, using those links right on their sites, because, you'll see right if you look in the top menu bar window, you'll actually see their name referenced when you kick into Comixology. So, definitely give them the credit for that purchase that you're making, because you're not costing yourself any money, but you are helping them at the same time. So I think it's something that I really firmly believe in. And it's something, like I said, that it's made my decision to buy more digital easier, because I know I'm supporting now comic shops when I'm doing it. And I really think that's a terrific thing. I love the banners, seeing them up there, and knowing that I can be a part of that whole event. I think it's, it's funny, after the midnight sale, it's even more important to me now, because that bond, that camaraderie, and there was something I felt with, we were friends with a lot of the people at DCB Service now, just through the years that they've been supporting our show. We've met them at conventions. We've had Zach on the show. Cameron, we meet, quite often at conventions. So they're friends. They're my local. I felt the same way when I was at Comic Heaven when I was there, so it was really great. And it's something I really want to shout out and say, please make sure you're doing that, because I think it's a cool initiative. Without further ado, Jim, let's talk about Flashpoint #5, though, the one where it all changes. So much that I didn't see coming. The cover, you've got that great cover where you've got really, and this is a great example of using a cover to throw the reader. You see Reverse Flash, taking on Barry and Batman. Thomas Wayne, and you get this impression like, okay, he's the big bad. This is what's going to happen. I never saw where this was coming. Thawne's, right over the top of him, so cocky, so conceited. Barry's in the middle is, what did you do to this world? And right from the get-go, we find out Barry's the villain. And I'm like, what do you mean you're the villain today? My jaw dropped. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
One of the things I got to jump on immediately on the first page, when I'm wrong, I admit that I'm wrong. With Element Woman, that very first page, that second panel, what's the first thing she's doing? Stay behind me, kids.
Oh, yeah.
Stepping up as a hero. I had my issues with her. Last time we talked about her, I was like, I don't know if I completely trust her. Right there, that shows the instincts of a hero. We have unpowered children in the middle of a war zone. Her first reaction is to protect the kids. Same thing with Cyborg. He's shielding the other kids that she's not getting to. Right there, I was like, I saw that the first page. As soon as we started reading this, I saw that. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad, that was a cool scene to show in.
And she is in the new DCU.
Yes, which is something I'm also very glad about, because now I want to follow further stories of Element Woman, because, one, she seems like she's going to be a goofy character, kind of some fun stuff, but right here, that one little panel shows that there is going to be some hero stories coming from her as well. There's going to be something beyond just an occasional chuckle and laugh moment.
Now, here's the funny thing, with Thawne having to go through the internal vibrations and finally show Barry what he did, Barry really didn't remember. So it wasn't an issue of Barry hiding it from himself or anything like that. The events that happened, I think the Flashpoint itself made Barry forget what he actually did. One thing I loved about this whole sequence was seeing how it played out, how he chased after him to the past. This is something we saw. The chase. We saw that whole event happening where he was doing that. We saw, originally I thought that Thawne was going after Iris again, not realizing that he was going after the mom.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about that sequence was, now that you see this, it really, to me, I don't know if this changed your impression of the first 12 issues of that Flash series, but now I'm like, wow, my gosh, that was brilliant. Because I reread them all together. I mentioned that on the show previously. But now with this being the kickoff of the whole thing, and with Barry being the big bad, I'm like, that was set up all the way through that series.
Yeah, that actually really just kind of adds to some of my enjoyment on it. You go back, reread the thing. I haven't yet, but I'm planning on going back and rereading the full Flash run up until through just after seeing this one little bit, knowing that they were laying the groundwork from the very beginning. They even said they're laying the groundwork in Flashpoint. They told us that they're, just pay attention to what's going on. We're giving you it right. We're starting to introduce what's going to happen. And as we're reading it, we're thinking, we keep thinking Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash is the big villain. Oh, okay. The whole time I was thinking, the Flash stuff was just a setup for what the Reverse Flash was going to do. Never once entered my mind that Barry's the one who did this big swerve. I got to say, it's like, that was just an outstanding thing. But the artwork in these sequences are absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on the artwork, especially because, to me, it's great villains. And to me, it's the perverse pleasure that Thawne is getting out of putting Barry through this, because it's a psychological thing. He is so smug and pompous and look at, everything I did was for the purpose of destroying Barry, and he got him to cross the line that he promised he'd never cross. And that was something that Thawne is loving. The fact that he got Barry to do this. Because is Barry really the villain? No, Thawne is. Thawne pushed him to this. Thawne, led him into this sequence of events. And this really puts Barry in a major conundrum now, realizing what he did. Doctor Who, one of my favorite programs of all time, loved it since the 70s, since I was a kid. And, gone back and seen the old black and whites as well. Throughout the years, Doctor Who has always explored, and other time travel programs like Voyagers and stuff like that, changing time. Anytime you make that change, you take that risk to change time, there is a ripple effect. There's consequences to your actions. Thawne went back in time to kill the mom, but also Barry going back to try and stop that. These events, spinning and spiraling here, between the two of them, such damage that they caused along the way. It's something, it isn't just on Barry, and that's one of the, Thawne's sticking it to him because, obviously Barry pulling all that speed force in to do it. And that's where it's Barry's, issue. Barry pulled in so much power to inevitably try and stop this man that's what caused the ripple effect. So that is on Barry. But, arguably, if you're poked and prodded enough, you're going to crack, and Barry cracked. And I love how this played out because I see where Barry was wrong, and I also feel for Barry. I don't know how I would handle the situation because this is your mother, so it's, member of the family, this guy's going after your family, erasing your past, changing your past, doing these things to you. This is happening. Who in their right mind wouldn't try to stop it? Because at what point in time does this guy do so much irreparable damage to those that are the closest to you and that you love? It's one of those interesting conundrums where, is he the villain of this piece? Well, you can argue that, but you can also, there's a sympathy as saying, I get what he was trying to defend there, and he made a mistake. I don't know that I consider him the villain. I think Barry made a huge mistake, and I think there's a distinction of that. I don't see Barry as the bad guy here. I see him as making a mistake in trying to stop villainy that's happening around him to those he loves the most. He traded one world for the other, and ultimately is faced with the honorable decision of, what do I do now? I don't know, the honorable decision. It's not him who's making the honorable decision, really, and we'll talk more about that as this progresses. But, it was something all the way through. I did not see it coming. I didn't see this being the way that it was going to go, and that was something that just had me speechless. And I love the villain setup. You talk about that artwork, those close-up shots. Do you remember? Look at the look on his face, because it isn't just it isn't anger on Thawne's face. That's perverse pleasure at, like, I'm sticking it to you right now, buddy. And that's just such a great shot.
That's just pure attitude, pure, I've got you. I've won. That's the look of I've won. That's the cocky, I beat you. I bested you, and I didn't have to do anything because you did it to yourself. Most people, you would think you kind of would take it as a false victory if the other guy, you're running a race, the other guy trips himself and falls. Is it a false victory? Well, to Thrawn, this was the perfect victory because Barry's the one who did everything, destroyed everything, and he's the one who came out ahead. I love just seeing, everything. You talk about the perverse pleasure. Initially when he's vibrating Barry's head, it was like, it's going to be painful. Good thing for me. And he jams it into him, starts going through it. Just once again, Barry went through this pain and suffering, and hey, let me just pour some salt in the wound. Let's just remind you of all the pain and suffering you went through. Oh, yeah, you messed up your universe, hero. You made the great mistake. I love this. And you see, and especially even just rubbing into it. Like, you change time like an amateur. This is your fault, Barry. This hell is your creation. You traded the life of your mother for the rest of the world. That was just a great villain moment. And I was just like completely just going, dang, this is awesome.
I was laughing when you were calling him Thrawn, because that was a character from a Star Wars. Timothy Zahn's thing. It's Thawne. There's no
Sorry.
No. I was the only reason why I even mentioned it is because when you were saying Thrawn, it drew me back to that 3-issue that kicked off with Heir to the Empire, I think is what was the original title.
Well, the Thrawn. Well, he was a great villain as well. So Thawne's in good company.
Now, I love Thomas Wayne's rationale on this whole thing. He's, Thomas Wayne overhears all this, and he's like, you caused all this? Well, you can fix it. And his goal, his end game is still the same. I want to give Bruce's life back. I want to make that work. And it shows you just how, at this point, how much Thomas Wayne believes, wants to believe, needs to believe, and at this point can accept no other alternative than Barry needs to be focused on restoring the universe. That's Thomas Wayne's endgame in all this. Nothing else matters to him because he believes if Barry restores the universe, that nothing that's going on around him matters at all. So he's willing to help Barry whatever cost to himself. At this point, he doesn't care about his life, anything. This is a father who wants to, his whole life has been driven by the death of his son. And now he has an opportunity to fix that. To sacrifice himself. See, that's one of those things. Talk about, Thomas Wayne headed down a very dark path, but internally, you're seeing the nobility of this man. He's willing to give up his life for his son. That's a true dad, a true father. And a father's love at that point to do that, no matter how far that he's fallen, to see that, he's like the Darth Vader of this story almost, really, it's like, there's that thing that clicked for him where all of a sudden, he's like found some hope from hopelessness, because he's a very different Batman. He doesn't, it's not about saving Gotham or anything like that. It's almost, for him, it's totally about punishing villains and controlling them. It's not about saving things. It's a very, and which is why his Gotham is so dark. And, he's looking at control versus salvation. A very interesting distinction between and it's something I really liked that was developed more and more in that Night of Vengeance miniseries, which the minis across the board, we didn't get to talk about every one of them on the show. We're going to have Art Lyon on to talk about Project Superman, to talk about his color work on there. But all of them, to me, in the end game, when you see this issue, really added to this whole experience for me. And that Night of Vengeance is just a key point where this Batman means so much more to me because of that. And I think you get that same experience if you're just reading the mini here, but I love that it just added another layer to me. That I think I always use as a point of reference from the Sinestro Corps War, that Cyborg Superman one-shot. Like, you didn't need to read it to follow the story, but boy, did that add a layer to that character's wanting to die. And this is to me similar vein. The one shots and then the 3-issue miniseries in this, just added something.
Yeah, I really dig seeing one. It's funny, every time I go to talk about Thomas, I have to catch myself because I say Bruce instinctively when I'm talking about Batman, and it's. Even though Thomas is such a different Batman, I still, that's a nice, kind of just feel where I still throw out the Bruce and I catch myself. But seeing Thomas just take an epic beatdown from Thawne, I keep wanting to say Thrawn now, from Thawne, and it was kind of cool. Just as he's going through, he's just basically gloating. Giving it to him, Dr. Thomas Wayne, you sad old man. And he's just beating on him because this is a level of fighting that, yes, Thomas is a talented fighter. He's a dangerous man, and he's hardcore, but he is dealing with with a super speedster who's going to move faster than him. And I just love seeing the slow beatdown go through. And then, Barry jumps in and she get that final gloating by Thawne, and he's sitting there just like...
you can call him Reverse Flash if you're going to keep calling him Thrawn.
I know. Reverse Flash. It was great because you see him just doing that final villain gloat that, normally it annoys me when I see that, but for him, it's so fit because his whole life has been about taking down the Flash, and he's never been able to kill the Flash, but now he can because Barry pulled him from the timeline, pulled him from time continuity. He's an anomaly. He can now kill the Flash without any repercussions. And so he's got his moment to gloat. He's got his moment to shine. And he just sitting there, beats up Batman, he's beating on Barry. That sadistic look at his face as the energy is like, I can kill you in your mother's womb, or I can kill you this very second. And he's just like, yes, everything's won. Everything's great. And then you get that final panel.
Well, this answers a lot of questions, though, too, because it came up from a listener call. How is he able to do this? Where did this power come from all of a sudden? Why didn't he do it before? And he didn't. And the funny part is it also answers a lot of questions. Why was he operating so differently doing this? He was discovering throughout this sequence of events that he is a living paradox now, and that this changes things for him. So it was interesting the way that he was operating during Flashpoint. I'm talking about the miniseries. We're learning a lot more from this whole sequence of events. So it's to turn into a living paradox at that point. And the funny part with him is he's a character like they kill him here. And you're talking about when Thomas kills him, and they kill him here. But the great thing about Reverse Flash is he's been killed before. With the way he travels backwards through time, there's storytelling ways to bring that character back again. And even the way the universe is altering, like this is our universe's Thawne dying.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that it's the new universe's Thawne dying, or that does the new universe have a Thawne? Is his story going to be the same? I don't know. We don't know any of that yet. What does that look like? That's going to be an interesting thing to explore as time goes on.
Yeah, I say there will be a Thawne in the new universe.
Yeah, of course.
But he's going to be called Wally West. They're going to bring back Wally as a heel. He's going to do a heel turn. That's my guess. Seriously, I do think that
I wasn't. You notice I wasn't acknowledged. I was laughing.
Yeah.
I was chuckling at it because I knew you were joking, but I wasn't even entertaining that.
I'm not either. Okay,
I know you weren't. That's why I was just letting you go.
Seriously, though, you think about it, he could very easily be back, because once all the universe resets, he is from the future. So who knows what Barry's actions in the new present day how it'll affect the future. So I think there will be a Reverse Flash, will come back, but it'll probably be a little bit different because everything in this universe is different. But just going from that panel where you have Thawne just sitting there going, has that look of shock on his face. You see the tip of the sword come out, then to Bruce saying, "What about me?"
No.
As he's sitting there jamming
Thomas.
his sword.
It's not Bruce.
I said Bruce.
Yeah. And see, here's the funny part. You connect him with Bruce so much. I think it's funny with Batman Inc. and the fact that we've seen so many people, even with Battle for the Cowl, where we saw other people wearing the suit. I think it was Night of Vengeance really showed me that this is not Bruce, that I have no trouble seeing him. And I'm not saying you're wrong. Please don't. This isn't disputing you. I'm enjoying this discussion and seeing how much you're connecting the father to the son, which is what you're clearly doing, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But I think I've in this short period of time seen this Batman as being Thomas Wayne's identity, that I'm not having that issue. And I get why you are, and it's not a right or wrong thing. I'm actually really enjoying that, because I'm like, wow, he's really coming at this from a different angle, and it's very interesting seeing you making that connection with him.
Oh, and it's something that we talked about last episode, where it'd be kind of nice if they did Elseworld stories where maybe continue on some of the adventures of the previous universe, or even maybe taking some of these characters and continuing their stories. I definitely would want to see a continuing adventures of Thomas Wayne as Batman, even in this messed up universe. Any of the dealings, like the pre-stories before Flashpoint happened, because there are years where Thomas Wayne was just becoming Batman. The year one of Thomas Wayne as Batman would make a great story, I think, because that would show the birth of his Joker and going everything that he went through when she starts at the scene, how he first hits the scene, how he first starts dealing with Gotham. I think that would be a wonderful story to tell. And it's funny, as I'm gung-ho looking forward to the future, I am thinking back to the past, but it's not even just the past, it's the Flashpoint universe past that I'd like to see some action and see some stories coming out of it. So I really got into these characters and really kind of embraced them as another timeline, another cool story, and just these are characters I'm now associated with and I'm connected to, and I can kind of picture and imagine how they would do stuff off camera.
That's where the minis worked for me, because you're trying to establish an emotional attachment to these characters, and you don't want to detract from the Flashpoint story. So those minis were really just a great opportunity to get to know the characters. Whatever minis you read, I'm hoping anybody listening had that same experience. If you read some of them, or even if you just read the main mini, hopefully you're able to get some emotional attachment here. Here's another great panel for me. This is a sign that Barry's a true hero. Bruce wouldn't kill. Bruce doesn't. That's not Bruce. And I loved seeing Barry's reaction to Thomas Wayne doing it. You killed him. And the look on another great art moment. Look at the look on his face when Thomas Wayne's standing there over the body, and just Barry's shock. And you think Barry has every reason to do that. And Barry, it's a line that Barry has broke his neck before with the first Flash. But this is Barry Allen. Barry's not that kind of guy. He's a true hero, and he'll do everything he can to try to avoid killing. And I love seeing that distinction. To me, that's really the contrast between the Thomas Wayne Batman and Barry Allen was really important to me there. I thought it was something that was well done visually, and I needed that, because there's a difference between, like, Thomas is very comfortable killing. It's his whole MO. He dumps people in that alley.
He dumps bodies left and right. So he's got no problem with a little blood on his hands. And he even had a one-liner when he killed them. Doctor's advice, when you're in the middle of a war, don't stand still.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's his whole MO. So it was funny seeing that thing. Now, this Enchantress moment where we see, she's turned, she's working with Wonder Woman and all that. But I love that that's not the whole story. And we're going to see that as it continues. But, she's doing this really just because she wants to be entertained, which just really shows, where her head's at. She doesn't really care which side she's on. She'll flip-flop at her leisure in order to accomplish that goal there. And I don't know, there was something that I found, like, it's kind of cool to have a villain of chaos in the midst of this chaotic battle. Somebody who really is finding pleasure in being a part of that whole thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely was a kind of a cool twist. And, well, I liked her little swerve when she first does her initial turn, and then it goes even beyond. Again, she's not a main character, but it's still, they're developing the supporting cast, they're developing the characters around all the action going on, so it's not just, she's not a one-dimensional character. She has some depth. She's got a little bit of craziness going on. She's got multiple personalities, multiple magical entities existing inside her, and that can make things a little bit crazy and a little bit turned upside down. So we see that out of her with everything that's going on here. I thought that was a great scene, and then when we get Grifter and the Resistance show up, I love that because the Atlanteans were coming after him like, Cyborg, we're gonna use your metal skull, as a trophy, and bam, bam. 2 shots, 2 headshots. You see the bullet wounds in the helmet, and then the blood just starts trickling down as the guy goes down. Great entrance for him.
Well, and the one thing I love, too, is, and this is where reading that Lois Lane and the Resistance miniseries, knowing the whole story behind Hyde and how that whole played out was really great to see Hyde on the battlefield with them.
Yep.
I loved the way that mini kind of played out. There was a different layer to the whole thing. Thomas, again... Now, did Thomas jump in front of Barry, or was it just that Barry and Thomas were both running in the location at that point? Because I was kind of, I guess it looked to me like an accident more than, a period of nobility. But I have no doubt Thomas would jump in front of Barry to protect him in order to change this world. Because he believes that much at this point.
I took it as a full-on jump in front of the blast and take the blast.
Yeah, because
I read that panel as he was jumping in the front of the blast, taking the blast, because he knew the Flash is the only one who could save the day.
So that's Flash trying to pull him out of the way when he's got his hands on the cape there? Is that what I'm seeing?
I think so.
Okay. Because he is running in the 2 panels back where they're running along. Thomas is on his feet and running as well. So it wasn't that Barry was carrying him, so he grabbed him at that moment to hopefully try and pull him out of the way. And I don't know, that was really cool. The Superman moment, and Barry just saying "knew it." That's a great Project Superman. If anybody listening didn't get an opportunity to read that, to see what happened to this kid and how all that played out is definitely worthwhile because you get a real interesting journey as far as why he's the way he is, what made him come back. At his core. His ties to Lois and stuff like that. Just to me was just plain. I love that he just comes in and stomps her out. What a great way to handle magic. Well, you can't use magic if you're smushed.
I gotta admit, on the first read through, I thought he just landed and it was, kind of like energy. It didn't dawn on me until I read it through the second time that he landed on top of her. He crushed her. Dude, boom. End of story.
Look at that whole thing. Her one arm over there, hair over there, and this isn't our Superman. And you really, if anybody had any issue with what he was doing there, you have to understand how this kid was raised. There is nothing, to his background that is anything like our Superman. There is a certain sense of a concept of goodness from how he was. How he was raised. Just in the sense that it was honestly somebody trying to correct a mistake that they had made. So he does have a concept of good and evil, but it's a very different character. I love that he came back though, and and then this no more concept, because knowing where that energy comes from and what happened with, honestly, I'm gonna, because this is ridiculous. I'm dancing around this. Lois's death drove this, and he saw Lois die. Lois and him had a childhood connection. They had met because Sam Lane was raising Superman, this Project Superman, and to know that at this point he's had enough. He saw Lois die. And then, flying off on the battlefield here, it just added another layer to this whole thing. It works on its own, with him coming back, that he's had enough of the war and the fighting and all that. But to see exactly what drove that. And this was a scared kid who Lois inspired. It really was. Sam Lane was trying to do the right thing by him because he'd made the mistake before with Subject Zero. And, to see him at this point, this kid, finally like stepping up and having an opportunity to do that, it's wow.
Well, his whole fight against Subject Zero was for the protection of Lois. And in her final moments, Lois was a kind of that inspiration that she's always been to Superman. This, Kal-El did not have Ma and Pa Kent raising, but he did have a somewhat normal, healthy connection, at least one. And with the way he connected and felt towards Lois. So when she goes down and she's like, you got to stop this, that was the thing that just launched him into it. And again, just complete echoing, knowing what happened and then seeing him land here was just a really cool moment. And I was just like, dang, that is just nice. And again, beautiful artwork, especially with the color sprays that are coming off, the green energy that was the Enchantress, some reds, some yellows thrown in there. But one of the little panels that I missed again until like the second and third read through was when they show Aquaman and Wonder Woman sitting there kind of squinting, right, the panel right above No More. If you look between them, you can see Enchantress's hat just flying back there. I was like, oh wow, I missed that last time. That's kind of cool.
Tiny little detail that was great. After that whole sequence of events when Barry's with Thomas, and Thomas is basically telling him, you need to run at this point. Thomas has figured it out. Not just what Barry has to do, that Barry has to run back and basically stop himself, because Thomas knows here. And it's funny how, this is very Batman-like. He's basically telling him, I'm sorry about your mom, because he knows what Barry's going to have to sacrifice to fix this. He knew in that moment. And it was funny in multiple read-throughs how this whole sequence reads differently, knowing that Barry has to sacrifice Mom in order to fix all this. But seeing that Thomas was really apologizing to him in that moment for that sequence, the giving of the letter was, to me, another highlight of it, which we'll talk about that when we get to that sequence. I love that Barry's instinct then was to run to Mom. And, you've got this moment where he's got to talk to her. He needs her counsel. And it's the only, he wasn't running away, so to speak. He was running and actually facing the decision. That moment is him having to face the decision. And he has to talk to her about it. He has to let her know everything. He throws it all out on the table and tells her everything. What I did wrong, how I changed history, what happened. I need to get your thoughts. I need to get your counsel. I felt like I was sitting here. First of all, I felt for Mom. I felt for him. How do you have that conversation? The responsibility that puts on his shoulders, both, do I make the decision to save millions and kill my mother? Do I make the decision to keep my mother alive and let this catastrophe continue? What do I do here? And, how can I correct it? Can I actually do that? Is it possible to undo the damage that's been done? And her having to accept at face value that what her son's saying to her is true. And that this is something that now is weighing on her shoulder. How many died? That whole sequence where she's asking those questions and accepting it and letting it all sink in and feeling a sense of responsibility, my life for millions. And I know what you did, Barry, but the life we had together happened. I get a chance to be with your father now, and she's tapping him on the shoulder and saying, hey, I can't be prouder or happier to have a son like you. There's just the emotion through that sequence. It felt so real to me of a true loving mother. I think, you and I are both lucky enough just to have great moms. Just that whole sequence, reading that through, I'm like, wow, was that authentic? And it was something that I saw it from the mother's perspective. I saw it from Barry's perspective. It's funny how Barry, when he came back, was a character I was having trouble connecting with. I am so fully connected to Barry right now. I dig the guy. I'm yay Flash. this whole sequence, I'm like, wow, I'm connecting with the man under, which has been my issue with Barry since his return. And some of that was deliberate. You know, that was part of the storytelling with the guy. He was having trouble connecting with the world, so we'd have that problem as well. I get that. This moment right now, though, I get Barry. I'm into Barry. This was really cool.
Oh, yeah. This was true heroic moment, but it's, you know, we always talk about how, you know, there wouldn't be really a Superman if it wasn't for Ma and Pa Kent, how they instilled that the Kansas farm boy character and just, you know, that strength that's inside Superman comes from the Kents. Right here, this is another cool moment where you see just the strength of a parent, the strength of a mother, just, you know, these heroes, you know, even anytime you're an adult, even non-heroes need sometimes, you need that moment. You need that, just that, hey, yeah, I need either it's something to bounce them off, talk to them, or just work through something. And it's the most human thing that we have, that we do need other people around us. We do need, you know, we are sociable creatures, even those of us who are antisocial. It's, you know, just seeing this wonderful connection. And one of the coolest scenes for me throughout this sequence, when the mom's like, how many people die? And at first he doesn't want to tell her. He's like, Barry, how many? And he's just like, millions. And it was like, wow. And you can see her kind of just get emotional over the fact that millions of people die because he goes back to save her. And she's just like, you know, you got to do this. And this is, you know, just constantly throughout this, you see the tears in the eyes. And, yeah, I got to admit, I got a little choked up just thinking about, you know, because you put yourself in these kind of places. If, you know, I had to choose between the life of my mom and millions of innocent people, you know, what would I do? How would I handle it? And I loved seeing just him just kind of, you know, knuckles up, digs in deep and says, I got to do this. It's, you know, I can throw out the Star Trek reference of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, but even this is just still, it's such a cool moment.
Now, after this, especially with the battle with Barry, you know, where he's facing himself, we see why nobody knows what happened.
Yeah.
Because there's 3 different timelines, and we see Barry go through the shift. All 3 timelines are combined. So Barry went through a lot of the major events that we've seen, but his life's also had other different paths because of it. You know, it's 3 different timelines merged. So that means some things are lost, some things are gained. You know, it's interesting because, you know, sure, a lot of the events that we all know and love happened, but also some of them were taken away because of the merger. You know, this younger Barry has been through a lot of our storylines. And I loved how that, like, really explained everything. We're seeing Barry go through a traumatic change in that sequence of events. You can see it in the way that, you know, look at how he's stopping running and shirking back and the gradual shift to the new costume. It wasn't a shift just to the costume. It was the shift of a man being combined. Because he's like, what? Who was that? What did she say? And boom. Barry remembers that he was a part of this alternate world. He went to this alternate world, this Flashpoint and all that. But here's the thing. What does Barry remember of our world? And, you know, my thought is this Barry remembers his history prior to Flashpoint if you put all the amalgamated worlds together. So I don't see this Barry, and I don't know, correct me if you think I'm wrong on this one. Do you think this Barry remembers our timeline or his altered timeline?
I think he only remembers the altered timeline. Mm-hmm. That he only remembers the Flashpoint universe, you know, and because the what was our timeline before this, mm-hmm. I think none of them remember it. Well, no one knows it happened. It didn't actually occur.
Let me clarify that. I know he remembers Flashpoint. I'm talking about his history before he became a part of Flashpoint. He remembers because clearly he talks to Batman about Flashpoint. You know, about being at this alternate universe. So he remembers that. What I'm saying is his history before that, though, what led him to the Flashpoint universe and all that, his from childhood straight on through, he remembers
the Flashpoint childhood to straight on through.
No.
That's what I take it as. He doesn't remember.
No, he doesn't, because wait, here, you got to look at, let's move ahead to those pages after he wakes up and when he's talking to Bruce, because he makes reference to the fact that childhood with his mom, he knows didn't happen, Jim. So he has a memory. He has a memory, right? But he also knows that wasn't his memory. like his childhood. He knows that that was an alternate timeline. That was, remember, because Bruce references that as a gift. I don't know how or why, but I remember every single moment I spent with my mom in that alternate timeline. So that's not all he remembers. What I'm saying is, and this is the part where I think you're not getting what I'm saying.
No, we're saying the same thing.
No, we aren't. No, we aren't, because you're saying he remembers the Flashpoint history timeline. What I'm saying is, right.
Yeah.
Right, and my point is, what I'm saying is he doesn't remember our timeline.
Right. The timeline before Flashpoint, he doesn't remember.
Right.
He remembers the Flashpoint universe, his childhood as the Flashpoint universe, and then he remembers this his current continuity, that life
from childhood straight on through.
Right.
Right. Okay. We are saying the same thing.
He remembers two childhoods.
Because you kept saying the Flashpoint childhood.
Yeah.
I agree that he remembers two childhoods.
Yeah, the Flashpoint
okay, we're on the same page.
And his real childhood.
Right.
Those are the two, and his real childhood is the New 52 continuity.
And this Barry
Those are the two things he remembers.
We're seeing Bruce and Barry here post the 5 years. This is present day. So this is what Barry and Bruce are like now. This isn't the Batman that we see in Justice League #1. This is that Batman 5 years later.
Yeah, agree.
In present day continuity. So we get to see them there. That's why we're seeing like I don't want to say, it is a gentler Bruce. Certainly more of a team player, a Justice League team player in this moment. The fact that Bruce is telling him, or it could be a gift, Barry, that's not the guy in Justice League #1.
Right. Oh, yeah. This is definitely current continuity.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Because what we get to see here is how Jeff Johns sees Bruce present day. Mm-hmm. And then we get to see in Justice League #1 how he sees him when he first got started meeting superheroes. Because Green Lantern, I guess, is one of his first heroes that he ever met. So we'll talk about that when we get into Justice League #1. The letter bit. For me, and I'm sorry, I guess I wasn't understanding you, so I apologize.
We were saying the exact same thing. Yeah. We were just saying it differently.
Yeah, so I apologize, but we're totally on the same page with that. That letter, it was somebody on our Facebook page mentioned that they wish they could have seen the letter, and I so totally agree with that. That moment where Barry hands that to Bruce, I think this sets a lot of the tone for the kind of Bruce we're going to have in present-day continuity. This is the continuation of what we've been seeing from Bruce in Batman Inc., his relationships with his quote-unquote sons, including Damian. This is a Bruce who does have a little bit more of an accessibility to him. I've really liked seeing Bruce in the present day. And I think we're going to see elements of what I've been enjoying in Batman storytelling. You're one hell of a messenger, Barry. Thank you. The tears in his eye before that, as a Batman geek, is just something I totally adored seeing. The ending of this, I just thought was brilliant.
Yeah. Now, here's my question for you. Mm-hmm. One, when Barry's crossing universes and when he's doing what he's doing and combining everything, who is that female that's sitting there? Do you have any idea?
No, she's new. And did you see her in Justice League?
No, I missed her in Justice League. One
of our listeners caught it, pointed it out on, I believe it was on Facebook. And I didn't see it. And I did 2 read-throughs, and I didn't see it till the 3rd time through because it was pointed out to me. So we'll talk about that when we get to Justice League, because I will show you where she was there. Cool. And I'm not going to take credit for that. That was something that a listener showed us. What do we now in practice? Now we see Andy Kubert doing the new Flash suit, and we get to see the new Batman suit. My initial impressions of both of those were seeing, especially the seamless way that Barry shifted there. Mm-hmm. To me, it's funny how much more power the suits have for me seeing them in context, where we've got Barry and knowing that it is, this is Barry who's been through. And I should actually clarify myself further. I do think this is a Barry who's been through most of the events we've seen Barry go through. I think Crisis on Infinite Earths happened to this guy.
Mm-hmm. I believe so as well.
Yeah. So I think most of our major events have happened to this guy, and I think things were compressed. I think certain things were taken out. Now, what's going to be interesting to me is, did Wally West happen to this guy? Were these characters? I don't know if we're going to find that out along the way. I'm curious because we saw in Kid Flash Lost what happened to all the speedsters. So did this Barry have that relationship with these speedsters? I'm very curious to see what Bart Allen's like. That's going to answer a lot of questions. Because did Jay Garrick happen? I think what happened in Kid Flash Lost is for this Barry, the case. I don't think we had a Jay Garrick in this world.
Yeah, we didn't have a Jay Garrick. We didn't have a Johnny Quick. I don't think we had any of them.
So in this world, are you reading this that Barry then is the first Flash?
That's how I believe it is. And then Bart was the second Flash, probably, going through the whole, his continuity is probably the same, where he's from the future sent back to the past.
And is he married to Iris?
Barry?
Yeah.
I assume so, but I don't know. We'll find out in the monthly.
Yeah, I think all bets are off. I don't know. I think we can take at face value that this guy who's standing there in front of Bruce is our Flash, and a lot of what we know has happened to him, but I don't know. I'm curious to see what happened with this guy.
Now, here's another question for you. With Barry remembering everything and Bruce telling him, "Hey, think of it as a gift." Now, is it a gift or is it a curse? Remembering, having those memories that he had with his mother, but knowing that, he could never fix things, he could never bring her back. Having just that whole kind of, does he, it happened, but it didn't happen to him. So
could you imagine having no memory of your mother at all? He remembers an entire lifetime with her. You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
so
yeah.
He remembers her. He remembers the Flashpoint mother having a full lifetime with him. Do you follow me?
Yeah, but the saying "ignorance is bliss" sometimes. Could that as you're sitting there looking at it, going, and you have those things that, yes, you have those memories of they happened, but did they? You in time you could start questioning: did they really? Can you say they really even happened? Because that was that other life.
Oh, I don't think he has that problem. I think that's the gift. See, I think he's not having the problem that he was having in Flashpoint, where history was trying to resolve itself. Look at him. He's very, everything's fine. I don't think he's having memory issues. I don't think he's having issues where they're trying to reconcile themselves. He's fully well aware that this is an alternate set of memories, and his mind's able to process that. So I don't see this being one of those issues where we're going to see a lot of, him having to deal with that. I think we're seeing here closure. I think we're contentment. Like, he knows, and it is a gift. He doesn't understand why he's been given it, but he has the memories of her having a full life. I think this is a way to say, this is not going to be like a brooding Barry like we've been seeing previously from him. We're going to see a Barry now who is content to move on as a hero.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I don't know. For me, if I was Barry, I don't know if I would want to know. I think,
would want to know, but wait. We're talking about two different things. First of all, he knows that he and his mom made that decision together. It wasn't just his decision. They made that decision together. So, that's a key point. But also, it's not just knowing about that decision. I think we're focused on that. He remembers an entire lifetime with her. He remembers childhood with her all the way through, which is something that you got to remember, he lost prior to Flashpoint. Our Barry lost all those memories because Thawne took them from him. So this is a Barry now who remembers all of these things that the Barry prior to Flashpoint did not know. He was, his mother died when he was young. He had no history with his mom. This is a Barry who remembers a history with his mom. I don't know that any child would want to give what Barry's got right now up. I'm not talking about the event where, that's a heavy load to deal with. Sure, the event where he and mom made that choice. But he remembers an entire lifetime with her. The lasagna, I brought dessert, the lemon tart, her favorite. Look at these fond memories he's talking about. Look at the smile that he's got on his face when he's telling Bruce about this. I don't know why or how, but I remember every single moment I spent with my mother in that alternate timeline. I'm guessing it could be a temporal after effect or result of... But look at that, and it's a gift. I don't think this is a negative on any stretch. And I think it's just that opportunity to have that connection with his mother. And what Bruce is telling him is, I don't have that. When he says it's a gift, he's putting it in perspective for Barry. You have something I would love to have. That's what leads to the letter. Mm-hmm. So I think Bruce in this moment, everything you're saying, I think would be true if he didn't have this conversation with Bruce. I think Bruce is giving him a gift by putting it in perspective for him. So I'm agreeing with you that I think a person in a different context would be wrestling in the way you're talking about. But I think this conversation with Bruce and Barry is showing us why Barry isn't going to have that. Bruce is saying to him, you've got a gift here. You know what a whole life was like with your mom. I don't have that. I think Bruce in that moment is jealous of Barry. And when I say jealous, not in a negative way that you would say jealousy. He's envious. Envious is probably a better word, and realizing this guy's got an entire lifetime of memories. Imagine if Bruce had the opportunity to have had those memories with Thomas. Barry was able to, when he handed him that letter, give him a piece of the gift that he was given. With that letter. And I think it's coming from a context that I can't see a negativity coming from it, because it's coming from to me, it's such a beautiful context. A celebration of their parents, the two of them bonding over this. These aren't two guys that are going through it alone. Where they're, Barry's off brooding in a corner dealing with this and he can't talk to anybody about it. He's sharing this with Bruce right now, and I think this is becoming closure for Barry. Handing the letter to Bruce, knowing that, wow, look what I've got that this guy is never going to have. His father sacrificed himself on the battlefield, too, in order for Bruce to live. And this is something that Bruce doesn't have the memories that Barry has of the man who did that, at least to the level that Barry does. So I don't think in that moment that Barry could walk away from that and be haunted, the way that he would be if he didn't have that with Bruce. And it's funny how I think I'm so digging my heels in this, not because I disagree with you in principle, because I think if you and I went through this situation, and you went through it alone, for example, and you came back from that world, and there was no, you and I had the conversation, but I have no context to connect with you with it over it, I could see that being something totally agreeing with you. It would haunt you the way that you're mentioning. So I agree with you in principle as far as how that would work in a normal circumstance. But in this case, you've got Barry. Look what Bruce went through with his parents. Barry got to see the other side of it. He got to meet Thomas. He got to do something that Bruce would kill for. That the time that he spent with Thomas Wayne, no matter what demons Thomas Wayne was faced with during that time, he's got a letter for Bruce that connects him with his dad in a very short period of time, and Barry's got a lifetime memory. How do you sit there and go afterwards, I would give that up? I don't think you can. Do you follow? I don't know if I don't know if I'm making any sense at all.
Hold on. I'm not. Let me just clarify one thing. I'm not saying I'm in complete agreement with what you're saying about between Barry and Bruce. I thought that was a great connection, reason why they had this moment together, and I completely see. When I first read this through, I saw all that. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm just thinking, what if I was Barry Allen? What if I was the Flash? What if I went through this? What if me, Jim Seguin, with everything I've dealt with, in my life, had something like this, a similar happen where there was a turnabout where my life went down a different path. Would I want to remember that? Would I not? I don't know. And that was just a more of a personal generalization about my life. In the book,
I'm doing the same thing. I'm saying, what if I was Barry? And what if I was with one of my close friends who lost his parents when he was a child, like I did? Because remember, Barry did now. That's part of the new switch. His parents aren't here. Because he made that sacrifice. He made that choice. So he and Bruce are connecting over this. He's got something Bruce doesn't have. The memories of all that. Bruce doesn't have that. And Bruce, you can tell from the look on Bruce's face, that simple letter Bruce is clinging to. Barry's got a lifetime of memories with his mom. That's what I'm saying. I'm with you. I think the funny part is you're explaining it so well that I'm captivated by what you're saying. I'm thinking it through logically, and I'm putting myself in Barry's shoes. I don't know how you could walk away from a situation that he's having with Bruce Wayne right now and feel bad for yourself for having those memories when you see a guy who would kill to have those memories. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Barry's got, he told Barry, you've got a gift. Now, I think if he didn't have that moment with Bruce, the scenario that you're playing out is 110% what it would be. So I agree with you in a different context. If he did not go to the Batcave and we didn't see this last sequence, I wouldn't be having this passionate rant on this right now. It's that sequence that totally throws everything you're saying, because what you're saying is very true and very human. And I agree with it, because I know for myself how I would be. I know in my life there's been times where I felt sorry for myself or felt haunted about something or whatever, however you want to view that. But having a conversation with a friend who has a worse situation humbles you. and makes you look at the positives of what you do have, makes you, cling on to it and go, wow, for as bad as it could be, look at the positives of what I do gain from this. So I agree with you that Barry does have a negative with that end result of what he had to sacrifice, but he's also got the positive that Bruce will never have. And I think holding on to that and be able to walk away with all those memories of a mother who loved him and shared all those special moments with him, even though he's got the dual memory of the negative that went along with it, is something that I think in that moment Bruce saves Barry from the haunting that you're talking about. And I think that's something where there was a dual moment there between the two of them. You see a bonding between Bruce and Barry that is not something I remember seeing between the two. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see their relationship in the Justice League. Not in this it'll be interesting to see the relationship in Justice League in the 5 years in the past, but also to see their relationship in the Justice League when that arc's done and we get to see Justice League come to present day, what their relationship's going to be like. Because I think this is a sign of a friendship between Barry and Bruce on a level that I think is going to be real interesting to see. These two have bonded on a huge level. These are now two, both in police work, in their own way, and the way Bruce presents himself and Barry. They've bonded over the, loss of parents. There's just so much here in this moment. I think it is an issue of two friends because I'm lucky in my life. You're one of those friends that, I just count my blessings that I've got very good friends like that. And I think you're one of the reasons I think why I'm fighting so passionately this battle right now is because I do think your moments with friends where you open up together and you bare your souls like these two guys are right here makes you, I think, see a situation for what it is and accept the positives from it. And I've been lucky enough in my life to have friends such as yourself where I can do that. So I was so connected with this so passionately that I agree with you on the scenario. And I know I'm rambling about this. I'm going to wrap it up right here with it. And anything you want to say to respond or go ahead. But, everything you laid out, I'm like, I get it. I get where you're going with it. But I just can't see a guy walking away from the Batcave knowing what Bruce has lost and feeling anything but, like, the positives of that sequence. Even if that negative is going to be a part of it. But for Barry, it's such a smaller part of than what Bruce has. And I think Barry knows that. Barry's too smart a guy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's funny because the story, in a way, wrapped up to a very calming, kind of moment. And in some ways, you have a high-action story that ends with that calming moment. Some people could say it would be anticlimactic, but just for everything you're saying, all the emotional response, everything that just you've argued with these two, just for me shows, again, just what a well-crafted story can do and just where it can take us. We've seen this complete universe go on a complete head-over-heels tailspin, and it all comes back to this, real human moment, personal moment between these two friends. And, and it's just a great way to end the series. It was a great way to end the Flashpoint, to end, if you will, the universe that we've known. And Flashpoint is one of those great events of all times for me right now because I love the pacing, love the layout, and beginning, middle, and ending, all three of them just had me going, dang, this is a cool story.
And it was funny when you were saying anticlimactic, I could see you could see people thinking that way. I actually am going to go the other end and say anybody who's not looking at this as one of the single most important events in this book, you've really got to go back and think about what we're seeing here. We are seeing the first appearance of the present-day new DC Universe. This is what the new DC Universe is. These are the first appearance, the first two characters that we see in present day. This event right here, to me, was the best in the book. It was the most important in the book. It was the one I was the most excited about, because as I was reading through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what Batman and the Flash are like in the New 52, and I liked them. And it affected my enjoyment of Justice League, because recognizing that Justice League is 5 years before this at the formation of the League, and knowing that that affects Bruce's behavior in that book, got me excited for the layout. I'm like, wow, cool. We're seeing, we're seeing what Bruce was like in the past and how he's changed over time, knowing how he changed in his own storylines. So we are seeing a Bruce who's very much a Batman Year One Bruce in Justice League, but all of this set a tone for me of, this is what present day's like. So I loved seeing this first appearance of this. So it was just a pivotal event. pages devoted to what this looked like. I thought they were critical, drastically important. Anybody who read this and didn't go pick up, Justice League and isn't excited about seeing these and isn't excited about the Bat books present day, because we see right here everything that Bruce has gone through that has changed him to the Batman that we see today. I really love Bruce's evolution in the Bat books right now. I'm excited for what Scott Snyder's going to do, what Tony Daniel's going to do, David Finch and Phil Helster. I'm excited for all of this stuff, as it's going through, because this is a character, Grant Morrison in Batman Incorporated. All of this stuff happened to him. This is that guy. I don't think this conversation would have happened the same way with the Batman we see in Justice League #1. And I love that concept because there's a contrast that happens from this as we go into Justice League #1. It's just something that, for me, just added to my excitement and my enjoyment. And I agree with you that, like, I could see people, kind of saying, well, that's really anticlimactic. And I had the opposite reaction to it. I thought it was the single most exciting pages in an issue that I thought was fabulous. Those pages, just for me, I'm like, oh, it's here. I see it. I get it now. Yeah. I'm into this world. I love these two guys. I'm excited for the Flash title now because I like this guy. This guy that's ending off this issue based on his conversation with one of my favorite heroes of all the time, Bruce Wayne, and seeing that it is that Bruce Wayne that I've been digging and enjoying with his evolution all the way through. This is a newer Flash, sort of, but he has the history as well, and it's a newer Bruce, sort of. He has the history as well. I'm digging these guys present day, and I don't know. It was just I'm like ready to chew off my microphone right now, and I love that. We have these moments on the show where there's books that generate this kind of emotion. To this level, where I won't shut up, I'm ranting so much about it. They're less frequent on the podcast. This is one of those where this is a book I will always remember the experience of going at midnight to pick up this title, being so excited to read this that night, and the buzz of the people talking in the comic shop, knowing that, we were all in that comic shop. Why were we there at midnight? Every one of us was there to pick this up in Justice League #1. People walked out with all kinds of other stuff, true, but you knew in that moment, in that experience of that midnight, opening. Like, I've never been to a comic shop for a midnight opening before in my life. To know it was for this event, this change in this universe, to then read this that night, read into Justice League from this that night, knowing what they look like in present day, and then contrasting that when I'm reading Justice League, saying, okay, this is Batman's past now, and we're getting to see, the formation of the League together and how these characters came together. In their early appearances where they're green, these characters, Bruce is obviously the more the veteran. We're going to talk about this when we're in Justice League, but I'm giddy for this because of just that whole experience and just how it paid off for me. And if there's anything else you want to add, Jim, I'll shut up now and let you go ahead and add it.
Yeah, I'm laughing because you're like, yeah, I'm just, nonstop talking. That usually doesn't happen to me. And I'm thinking, have you not listened to our show ever?
Well, no, not from this point, though. You know what I mean? It's like the energy and emotion I have here. I mean, I could literally pick up our mixer right now and probably throw it 3 blocks. There's that kind of, you know what I'm talking about. We have those books where we're both like, it blew me away. The experience of Flashpoint 5 leading into Justice League and reading them in that order, and really kind of, I was left with the closure of Flashpoint 5, realizing that I had just seen for the first time what the present-day new DC looks like. And then, the start of Justice League #1, which we'll talk about in a second, knowing that was 5 years in the past because that's right on the first page, and knowing that and Batman's different in there, not drastic, but enough, that we see a grittier, angrier Batman, the Batman that we haven't quite, and even that we'll go in depth because there's some changes to him in there too that I think are positive as well. We'll talk about that when we get in there. The experience was just mind blowing for me, and I'm thrilled because, like you, when this was first announced, I was worried. I'm really digging this universe. I love that this really felt like it wasn't the end of a universe. It was all the old continuity happened. This Flashpoint event happened. These 3 universes were merged, and we're moving on. This is a new part of the continuity. It isn't over. And, I felt that same way with that Legion series by Mark Waid. How we had Legion of 3 Worlds that kind of combined everything and, told us how that all worked out. I love that. I love stories that don't throw the past out the window. It did happen. Nothing, it happened. It might not be, these characters might not remember every little event that we read, but there's a pivotal event in the DC continuity with Flashpoint where you can say, this is where it veered off. This is the fork in the road. And we just finished reading the fork in the road, where it all comes together and goes into the present continuity. And I really, as a longtime reader, I appreciate that I can put the stories that I loved into a history that makes sense, while at the same time realizing that these two characters that we're seeing at the end of Flashpoint have a different history on that fork.
See, I always like the fork in the spaghetti more than in the road. The road kind of is too earthy for me.
Yeah? Yeah, that's true. Well, the occasional worm's not such a bad thing.
You know what? Worms got a lot of protein in them.
That's right. Is there anything else you want to say about Flashpoint 5? So I'll shut up for a second and let you, if there's anything that, I left out in your experience, then I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's funny because I'm sitting here just, kind of, in a way, I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you just because hearing the energy, we on the show, we have a lot of positive energy and we talk about what we like. And that's part of one of the reasons why sometimes we go off on tangents. We go off on long, winded diatribes because we're so passionate. We're so enjoying this. I get, kind of a little pleasure out of just hearing you go on and go on. You're just like, yeah, and you're preaching to the choir. One, so I'm in agreement with you, and two is just you keep going and you keep building yourself even more. It's kind of cool just to sit back sometimes and listen.
Well, it is funny though. There's a distinction between I'm lucky enough that my tastes in comics are diverse, and I really enjoy quite a bit. But there is a huge distinction between a title that I enjoyed and one that just blew me away, got me excited, made me want to reread it again right away, and in the middle of the night. And that's what this was, and those are that's a shorter list, a much shorter list, and I was excited to talk about this today. I couldn't wait for just this moment, and that's whether you guys agree, anybody listening to this agrees with me or you as far as your enjoyment of Flashpoint 5. If you're not getting this experience from comics that you've been reading, and you've never had this experience before from comics you've been reading, do make some changes to your pull list. Try some new titles, because this is what comics are all about. We all have different tastes. Everybody listening to this is going to have different tastes than you have, Jim, than I have. You and I don't always have the same tastes. My enjoyment of one title versus your enjoyment sometimes, it veers off. We might both like a book, but to different degrees. But that's true for our listeners. And really make sure, especially with this new 52, there's 52 new books to choose from. If you're trying to book for, the first 3 issues and you've got a limited budget and you're like, make a switch. Try something new. Try to find those books that give you this. Because I do get this every month from certain books. And it varies from month to month, depending on where a title's going. But I got to tell you, it's been a while since I've been blown away like this. This was cool.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
It's funny. You and I were kind of talking off microphone, whatever you want to call it, about how this. I was laughing at, I was like, there's 2 bits of there where it seemed like I was biting your head off, but it was really just the passion over the enjoyment of the story. But it's funny how sometimes, we both do this. We'll get fixated on things. That's where some of our, best discussions, I think, have come from. And the end result is we're both saying the same thing. This dude, Justice League #1, from the new logos to, just the whole look and everything. It's funny what a difference an evening will make to just my overall impression and excitement of it. That whole day, Tuesday, I was just chomping at the bit to get to the comic shop. I came home, I told my wife, I said, this is my plan tonight. My whole evening revolved around this. I got my schoolwork done, I grading papers and stuff like that, getting ready for the next day. And then I'm like, I told my wife, I said, I grilled for her because I was grilling burgers and stuff. And it's one of those things when you're telling your wife, you're going where at midnight? I'm like, you don't understand, honey. I got to go to the comic shop. And she, at this point in time, she's such a patient woman that she says, she's listening to me over the table. All right, you want to do this? Go right ahead. But I literally, it's funny how I'm almost like apologizing beforehand when I'm like cooking dinner and stuff like that to, make sure I can go do this. But then reading this And it took everything within me, and I'm so glad I waited to not read this first. I wanted to read this before Flashpoint 5 because I was just so anxious to read the new DCU, and I'm glad I waited because of what I mentioned at the end of Flashpoint 5, where I felt like I had already experienced the new DC universe, in the present day. So then when you see this issue and the second panel is 5 years ago, it set a tone for me, like anything that's going on with the characters. And this world, I mean, they're hunting him down at Gotham City. So this is really the start of his career. They don't recognize him as a friend yet, where they do in present day. I'm guessing in present day, we're going to see the Batman that we're seeing in Batman Incorporated, what we've seen beforehand with the character, with slight tweaks and changes, mainly with, I'm guessing, Tim Drake. I don't know. These are things that I'm anticipating seeing, but the fact that we know what the guy's like in the end of Flashpoint 5 just really gave me a lot of understanding of what the difference is with the man right now. I loved the visuals in this book. Oh my gosh. This creative team, it reminded me of, I loved Hush. And one of the reasons why I loved Hush was the great storytelling combined with just incredible visual storytelling. Jim Lee in this... let's talk the whole creative team. Jeff Johns, writer. Jim Lee, penciler. Scott Williams, inker. Alex Sinclair, colorist. Pat Brousseau, letterer. Rex Ogle, associate editor. Eddie Berganza, editor. The cover, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, Alex Sinclair. The variant is by David Finch, Richard Friend, and Peter Steigerwald. It's the whole creative team on this just visually hit a home run. And that goes to not only artistically, the lettering was great, because there was so much of this internal dialogue and from characters just was so great in this whole thing.
Oh, big time, dude. Yeah, it's you're talking just when I first got jumped into this, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? And the hunting down of the Batman. Then it's the second, third read-throughs. You start seeing little stuff like you notice. Like I didn't notice the first time the little laser sights that are actually on, Batman when the helicopter's sitting there. There's two of them. Well, take them down, and you see the laser sights on him. They go to fire, and he moves, and he keeps. It's that stick and move style of fighting that Batman has to do when he's being hunted down by the helicopters, by the police. Plus, he's going after some unknown entity that he's got to, that's, a baddie that's up to no good. He's got to stop them. So I loved seeing just this kind of, beginnings of Batman, just where, as you said, they're not friends with all the heroes aren't friends with the police. They're not friends with the government. They don't know who they are, why they're doing it. You can imagine, you think about modern day society. If people started dressing up in costumes and fighting crime, everyone's first comment would be, what's their end game? Why are they doing this? What's in it for them? Especially when you start dealing like with a crazy guy dressed up like a bat. Hello, that's not exactly the most normal thing you're going to see in the universe. So you got to ask, okay, is he a little bit off his kilter? Is he a little bit off his rocker? Add to it just the intensity that Batman is. I like seeing just this kind of right in the beginning. It starts off bullets flying, high chase scene, high action, and again, artistically, this is just some wonderful stuff. I was absolutely just blown away with what I was seeing.
Is this the first appearance of a new Parademon?
That's what I took it as. That's what I thought they were.
Mm-hmm. Which is really interesting. Now, going back to Flashpoint 5, mm-hmm. the people that are after the heroes, or the whatever's after the heroes, are we taking that to be Darkseid? I mean, obviously from this storyline, I'm not revealing anything that's too crazy to speculate, because Darkseid is going to be the big bad in this. I mean, you see that in this storyline with the mention of Darkseid. And are we seeing a new variation of those gods, and that's what this person's talking about? Because that person is in this issue, and I will show you that person when we get there. Thanks to one of our listeners for pointing it out.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find it, and I've actually been flipping through the thing trying to find her and saying, okay, where is she?
I'll show you exactly where when we get to it. But I'm questioning, because of the fact she does appear here, if that isn't part of this. I don't know. It's we'll see what ends up happening with the whole thing. I love this Batman costume. Really love this Batman costume. It's funny. I like this one better than the one we've seen currently with Bruce. I think I gave some leeway to that one. See, I personally, I prefer the bat symbol. It's funny, I grew up with the yellow behind the bat symbol. Mm-hmm. I've never liked that because I've always felt it was a target. As I got older, I should say. When they started going to just the black bat on him again, I really like that look. Seeing Bruce with this look now, the tech armor stuff that they've added to it, it isn't too crazy from what we've seen from Bruce before. It makes a lot more sense. This suit has a little bit more armor to it. It's close. It's like a nice amalgamation of functional without taking away what to me is classic Bruce Wayne artwork. And there's enough of it that's like, you can have slight artistic variations like you normally do with Bruce, when different artists take over the character, without taking away from the design. It's got every trademark of the classic Batman outfit that you can, leave it open to interpretation. And understand why, like, Gauntlets might be slightly different from one book to the other because he has different versions of the outfit, because look how this one's getting torn to shreds. Mm-hmm. It was just stuff that I really dug about this whole thing.
Yeah. See, I've always been a yellow chest plate kind of guy. I liked it. It just...
Did you really?
Yeah, and I'm not knocking the straight black, but it's just for some reason with me, whenever I picture a bat costume, it's got the yellow, chest plate.
Well, you got to understand, through my entire childhood, the Batman that I read was with the yellow chest plate. Mm-hmm. I think what it was, and where my turn started to come, was when things like Year One came out and stuff like that, and they started to move away from that to the black one. I think it was just kind of that shift for me that was something that I think I connected with. I did like it coming back on Bruce when Dick Grayson was Batman in Gotham. I liked the distinction between the two visually, so that way when artists were drawing both of them together, you could tell very easily, besides size, which one was Bruce and which one was Dick Grayson. I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And there was more than just the yellow that distinguished between the two. But now that Bruce is the Batman again, the sole Batman again, that was the return to that was something that I appreciated. And let me be honest and clarify, similar to you, I don't have an issue with the yellow chest plate. If they put that back on him, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Especially when you're writing this guy that's, it's funny. It's the guy who's like predating the guy who's in Flashpoint 5, because this is a younger version of him. We're seeing that. Right up to Green Lantern's appearance here. Oh my gosh, did I love that. Coming in with that fire truck. And I love how the fire truck is like breaking apart as it hits him. Like, we're actually seeing battle damage on the fire truck from the collision. Like, those tiny details, like, I spent so much time looking at all the pieces parts coming off of the truck, like the wheels and stuff like that. I don't know if that was from him constructing it or from it, like him showing, because you see it when it crashes into him. You actually see the damage on the front of it. So I was taking the tires bursting off to be from damage. Is that how you were taking it?
Yeah, it was kind of as what would happen if you actually threw a fire truck. Mm-hmm. Things would fall off. Some of the side panelings are opening up. Stuff are flying out, and that's all just inside Hal's mind. And he's creating it. It's his willpower. And in a way, I think it's him showing off, saying, "This is how good I am."
But it
Not
would
only
be.
Am I throwing a fire truck at this thing? I'm saying if I threw a fire truck, this would bend, this would fracture, this stuff would happen.
And I'm sorry, I was getting giddy over the fact that you were saying it's how Hal sees in his mind, because it's not just Hal constructing it in his mind. He's playing through a whole scenario in his mind.
Yeah.
And as the scenario changes, like, this is how Hal visualizes it when it hits the parademon. And I'm going to loosely say it's a parademon right now. If it turns out it's not, I'll take that back. But for right now, I'm labeling this parademon. And, when that truck hits this guy, this is how Hal visualizes the whole. It's not just Hal constructing it. He goes through the whole scenario of hitting it. It changes based on Hal's change in perception of it. And I don't know, it was something that I just really enjoyed seeing. I mean, it was, wow. I don't know, just added something to it.
Yeah, I'm all in saying this is a parademon. I'm 100%. There was it. When the issue first came out, I was looking and I'm reading. I didn't know what it was. I was like, hey, I wonder if this is a new spin on one of his regulars, or if this is a new member, to the Bat to the back rogues gallery. But as soon as at the end when he says for Darkseid, I'm like, oh crud, that's a parademon. Cool. Yeah. And like the one scene where Bruce tackles him, there's kind of somewhat of a classic parademon look to him with the goggles and just everything there.
Now, one of the things that stuck with me on this whole thing, little tiny details, like, remembering that this is a Hal who has, like, very recently gotten his ring. He's gone through some very early stuff as far as, he's been to the Guardians and Oa, probably had some early adventures right now. But the inexperience, like, when this thing goes in collision, he almost knocks Bruce off the roof.
Yeah.
There's something, Bruce's skills obviously came into play here. But I just like that tiny detail showing us again, because when you see Hal, you're real, and just Bruce, I like how Bruce is looking at different ways of operating. Hal's used to being bright, relying on the ring to cover him, not working with stealth, not, strategizing the way that Bruce would. Bruce needs strategy for every single moment because one wrong move and he's dead. He doesn't have a ring to back him up. Yes, he has his gadgets, and yes, his suit's armored and stuff like that, which that's nothing new for Batman. The armored cowl and the fact that he had chest armor, it was something we always had to suspend our disbelief, but there's been multiple years of cutaways revealing that there's stuff underneath that costume besides just Bruce's muscle. Now we're seeing a little bit more of it visually, and I liked that it didn't go too far. It doesn't look too movie-ish, if you follow what I'm saying, where, like, it's too bulky on him. Because I want it to be comic booky. I want it to feel like it's a little bit closer to his skin than it actually really would be if it was really the kind of armor that he's talking about wearing, you know what I mean? I don't want it to look like he shouldn't be able to move in it like we see in the movies sometimes. But, seeing this moment where you see Hal there and the first meeting between the two, I think this had more meaning to me because I knew that these were younger guys, that and that we've seen them older in Flashpoint 5. I think that was really critical. Also, the fact that both Hal and Bruce have had previous experiences with being attacked. Green Lantern's had deals with the Air Force, where they're attacking him because this is a world that doesn't know about superheroes. There was no JSA.
Yeah.
So these guys are really at the forefront of what's going on. Superman's just coming on the scene. Batman's aware of him. Green Lantern's aware of him, but they haven't had a meeting yet. So we're seeing the first time these two characters have met together. They know of each other. Batman's kind of an urban legend. Green Lantern's been obviously in the papers or whatever. Bruce is, he's a detective. He's got files going on everybody. But this is really uneasy. I read one Facebook post or forum post or something like that where they kind of compared it to All-Star Batman and Robin. And I kind of see that, except I don't feel that either of these two guys, I feel they're not being jerks. I think there's a lack of experience, more so on the Green Lantern end, and then Batman's lack of patience with it. And I think there's a difference there between the two. Did you get that vibe of an All-Star Batman and Robin from this? Because I didn't. I get where the person got it from, so I'm not disputing that end of it, but I don't, and I still don't get that vibe from it because I don't think this is that Batman at all.
No, I understand what they're saying and just I can see kind of the spirit from it, but for me, I see this as, Hal is hell. It's, you're dealing with just this great power that's on his hand, and he's still getting the groove of it. And I'm willing to bet probably Hal hasn't had a major battle yet or suffered a major loss yet as Green Lantern. He's still just seeing the really cool side behind it. Mm-hmm. He's like, hey, I'm Green Lantern. I can handle anything. And you got Bruce, who's been on he's in the trenches. He doesn't have the powers. He only has himself to rely on. And growing up, that's what he had. This is a person who has, issues, playing well with others just because he's always been alone. He's always been that outsider. And then, especially once he started on with the mission, he was really alone because he's been training for years and years and years before he even put on the cowl. So he's a loner by nature. Add to it, you got this bright green guy coming in, drawing attention. Bruce relies on the shadows. He relies on fear of his enemy, of his enemies being afraid of him. He uses that as a weapon. It's part of what Bruce is. And here's this guy who's the exact opposite of that. And so that's going to, throw him on the defensive, throw him off. And I thought it was just a great, initial panel where he's like, the Batman, you're real. He's like, and you're too bright. It's just like, each of them immediately specifies who they are, where they're coming from, and then when the Gotham police swoop in, they're like, put your hands up, and then they fire immediately. They don't even give them a chance to surrender. It's put your hands up, and then we shoot you. And even Hal comments on it. He's like, hey, welcome to Gotham City. This is how Gotham operates. This is, they're a little bit tougher. They're a little bit rougher.
No, because the Air Force has attacked him in similar ways. But the world fears them, because Bruce refers to this. The world's afraid of us. And, Hal's coming back with, you say that like it's a good thing. So Hal's had that experience. They reference it. But it's a difference between the two of them in philosophy. Hal wants to change that. Bruce believes it's necessary. Because as a human, Bruce sees this superhuman threat as something they should be on guard of. So it's, especially at this age, because Bruce, remember, this is a Bruce who has not yet had the experience of working together with these people on a team. And I think what we're going to see in this is Bruce's change, where Bruce starts to realize how beginning to trust heroes and beginning to build relationships with these, and when I say heroes, I'm talking about superpowered, meta-powered heroes, is something that will be a beneficial thing. If we all team up together, we can fight against threats. They need to have that big fight against that big threat for him to start seeing that, though.
When I say Hal, the way I look at it, Hal has had the issues with the authority. He's had the issues with the military, but I'm willing to bet the military handled it completely different than Gotham PD. Gotham PD said, put your hands up, bang, and fired. They never gave them an actual chance to surrender. Why? Because the Batman never surrenders. So they're just going by, you see them, you shout out police, just so we're not technically breaking the law, and then you take a shot. Where Hal's probably dealt with the military probably said, hey, stand down. He's like, I'm not standing down. And, either disappeared or maybe a couple missiles fired at Hal. And Hal didn't have
Bruce
to
refers to, hold on. I'm going to disagree with you there. How, if that was what happened and it was that simple, why would Bruce refer to it as conflicts with the Air Force?
They're conflicts in quotes. I'm thinking it never got physical, or if it did, it was limited physical.
Oh, I think conflicts. I think conflicts means Bruce is being kind about it. In quotes.
I take it.
I think there was full on. I think there was. Yes, I think it is sarcasm in the sense that he's saying conflicts instead of saying there was a full on military action against Hal. See, I'm reading it the opposite way. I agree with you that the quotes are meant to be exactly what you're saying. I took that to mean Hal's had some battles where the military's like attacked him, not, because they didn't know what he was. You're telling me if the military sees this, they wouldn't take him to be an alien threat or something like that? They have no reference point to heroes. You see this guy going around, and I mean, this is not an anti-military thing. It's just the opposite. This is a world where Gotham police departments are shooting right away at this guy. If they're doing that, what's the military doing?
I'm just thinking, the reason I think it is because Hal's surprised by Gotham's reaction. He's surprised by the Gotham PD saying, put your hands up and firing immediately.
So I think he was wait a minute, hold on, dude. Put my hands in the air so they can just shoot me. He threw up right away shields and guards like that. That's not a guy who is surprised by his action. He's not going, oh my gosh, what are they doing? He is already ready with the defense up there because he's been through it before. You and I, this is a great example. This is a great example of you and I reading this scene completely differently. I don't see anything surprised because, he was more surprised when he met Batman for the first time. Look how nonchalantly he's throwing that thing up. He was ready for them to start shooting.
Yeah, I'll give you that point. So it could be. I don't know how it's. This is one of the things where I kind of wish I hope we do get to see somehow. How Hal's early meetings with the military went. I would like to see that.
You and me both. And honestly, I'll even go take it one step further and say, I don't care whether I'm right or wrong on that. If it's your way or mine, I don't really care. And that's one of the things I'm very interested. Like, this is intriguing to me because I guess for so long in continuity, it's been that the JSA has predated this team, since that change actually happened when they brought that JSA concept back as being, the mentors of this Justice League. To see it this way, to bring this concept back in continuity, these being the original heroes, to me is, I love the twist of it. You know, seeing them having to deal with how do we, and both of them being two different kinds of operating heroes. Hal is the flyboy, you know, used to running the high-risk things, doing the kind of daredevil thing, you know, in this case doing the heroic thing, which is a daredevil thing as well, and then, you know, expecting reaction, you know, and hopefully accolades from it. Not that Hal's on that booster gold, like early booster gold level of that. I don't mean it that way. But I mean, you know, I could see Hal swooping down and talking to people after he saved them. And, you know, there being that kind of interaction with Hal that you're not going to see with Batman.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, agree completely. And it's funny, as we're talking just about more artistic stuff, the barriers of the people he's putting up as they're taking shots, there's like cracks forming, even though I know these walls aren't going down anywhere, but it's just still the same kind of Hal in Hal's mind. As bullets are hitting, it's going to kind of have that spider webbing effect on there. Just it's little art details that, and I also always like seeing, you know, and it's on all these art sequences, you can see the original line still going back to the ring. You know, and it's usually a lot of times very faded, but you can still see the original thing going right back to his hand. I like seeing that as well.
The threads coming out of it. The threads coming out. I like that a lot, too. I'm with you. One thing I want to comment on, you know, we talk about costume changes. I'm glad that Hal's costume is just a slight variation of the Rebirth suit. You know, they changed Hal's from the waist down, you know, back during Rebirth. Because he had like that, I don't know, I guess it looked like a singlet, you know, where the green went all the way down.
Yeah.
And they made that slight change. I always liked the new version of that. You know, they gave him the collar and you know, slightly tweaked the look. It was a good decision not to go too far with that because I've always liked Hal's suit. I really liked the Rebirth change to it. And it really wasn't necessary to go too crazy with it. So it was a good choice to then just, you know, mess with the hair a little bit, you know, to make it a little bit more modern. But, you know, there's very important to me. I don't know. I really like Hal's look, and I'm glad they didn't go too crazy with it.
Yeah, I co-signed that one.
So it was, and then we go back onto the Parademon battle. And you know what? With this wing sequence, this is what sold me. When I flipped out, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm done now. This is definitely a Parademon. You know, very good change to the Parademon. Like I think at this point, you know, there comes a point in time where when you're modernizing the character, you need to make the Parademon seem fierce again. Boy, did they do that here. You know, this is the change, the adding the like transforming kind of aspect to it. Seeing this thing just kind of, you know, blast and shoot through flaming helicopters and stuff was just really terrific.
Yeah, and again, it was nice, cool sequence. Parademon hits, blasts Hal, takes out the helicopters to use it as, you know, kind of an escape. But Hal's able to recover and catch the falling helicopters with giant green bats. I thought that was just, again, a great showing of Hal Jordan, that he's able to roll with the punches, he's able to focus, because that was a pure shot to the back. He was caught off guard by that one, but was able to, you know, roll with the punch, deal with it, you know, and continue on with the mission. I thought that was cool.
Also, this idea that Green Lantern's got this, and he's using the bats as kind of a way to show he's looking for respect from Batman, props from Batman. That to me says green. And when I say that, I really don't mean it as a play on words. I mean, you know, this is a young Hal just getting his start, and it was an interesting balance because you want to make sure to skirt the lines and show that they're youthful and that they're just getting their start at 5 years earlier, but you don't want to make them unlikable either. And that's where I think when, you know, one of our listeners mentioned the All-Star Batman and Robin, I think it's because I had such issues at certain points in time with Batman in that, and some of those were deliberate. You know, he was deliberately made into a jerk. I didn't get that vibe from him here. You know, I took some impatience from time to time, and, you know, there's points in time where Hal deserves the impatience. But then it's when he does have the patience, when he does hold back, that's a distinction. And we'll talk about that when we get to it soon. But there was something about that. And I loved Bruce's, like, when they're talking about Hal's powers as Green Lantern, and not even Hal's, just his powers. Like, Green Lantern's talking about the fact that, you know, this is my space sector. And Bruce is like, you know, and he's taking it in, but he's also skeptical. I really liked that because Hal's talking about how there's a whole core of these, you know, of Green Lanterns, and I think, you know, Bruce is, you know, skeptical of the whole thing, doesn't really believe everything this guy's saying. He doesn't obviously have a lot of respect for Hal because Hal hasn't totally earned it yet. the way he's carrying himself is something that Bruce wouldn't respect. Because I think Bruce has trouble dealing with people that are out in the open. They don't calculate and think and plan, and you're showing that Bruce is philosophically having differences with this guy. And not saying that Hal's doing anything wrong either. He's being a hero. If I was a hero, I'm probably, as much of a Batman fan as I am, I'm probably more likely to be like Hal in this than I would be Bruce. But I think Bruce is very true to character.
And here's how I'm actually reading this sequence, and it's similar but a little bit of difference than what you're seeing. I see Bruce is, basically, when you get a person who's a talker and they want to keep going, you just sit back and you just let them go, because they're going to reveal everything about them. They're going to reveal inadvertently, usually, their weaknesses. And right now, Bruce is studying him. Bruce recognizes that Hal is looking for the, hey, good job, way to go, accolade. So, one, you don't give it to him, because that just keeps him going, keeps him talking. And, kind of like the dismissive, sort of just, whatever, is again another play by Batman.
Hang on. I'm gonna blast this one out right now. let me tell you why. Take a look at this dialogue and the way this works out, because Bruce comes back with Space Spectre. He's totally listening to this guy. It's my beat. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me finish. It's my beat. I'm not the only Green Lantern out there. There's thousands of others patrolling the universe, a whole corps. And he's like, I'm serious. I was alerted to an unauthorized extraterrestrial presence in Gotham. Now, here's where philosophically Bruce is going to have a problem. Bruce has got to see things logically. He's got to see the world in a way that makes sense to him. He questions the extraterrestrial bit by saying that witnesses spotted this thing trying to plant some kind of bomb downtown. So he's adding a real-world element to this thing, saying this is a terrorist action at this point, when the cops confronted it, it spewed fire from its mouth. So, they're sitting here at this moment, and he's analyzing this, trying to find a real-world connection to this thing. So you've got two guys here, Bruce, who's very grounded on the Earth, Hal, who this type of thing is very matter-of-fact to him. And let me go back one step further and say, I do agree with you that Bruce is letting him spew out on purpose and doing the thing to get him to keep talking, because Bruce is digging for information. So I do agree with you on that 100%. So I shouldn't say I'm blasting it out. It's just the opposite. I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm agreeing with most of it. I think the area, though, is Bruce is coming at it where I really think that I found this interesting, and maybe it is the distinction you're talking about between the two of us, is that I really felt like Bruce was the extraterrestrial thing is not something Bruce will go to, just like magic would not be something that Bruce would go to, especially this early in his career with the lack of exposure to that. Bruce is used to seeing all kinds of crazy villains, and there being a terrorist threat, there's a certain plan to them, a Two-Face kind of thing, a Joker kind of thing, and this is another one of those in his eyes. Now, I think that's going to change along the way, but I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and to be honest, and there is some of it where Bruce, there isn't, I will completely agree, Bruce does have an uncomfortableness with extraterrestrial, and when he hears that, he is probably, there 100% go along with you that, maybe he threw out the stuff about the bombs, about, just trying to ground it back into reality in his comfort zone, but I really, and the fact that Bruce is able to get Hal's ring off of him, and he was studying him the whole time. He's like, hey, what's this do? No, I don't see any buttons, so I'm guessing it works like concentration. You weren't concentrating. And again, that was just Bruce, and that's why Bruce played out the way he did. He let him keep talking, he let him keep going, and he was able to then basically assess strengths and weaknesses of Green Lantern in that one show. And that in just this brief passageway, and it's Bruce because he's studying, people. It's part of training. Part of detective work is understanding, it's profiling. It's understanding what people do. When you start getting into someone's head, you can figure out their next move. You can plan for their next plan of attack. And that's exactly what I saw Bruce doing the whole time.
Oh yeah, you nailed that. I totally agree with you. We're really seeing the whole thing the same.
We're seeing the same thing.
And the way you said that is, I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, that's such a great example of just great Batman, at that moment, because he doesn't know this guy at all, and I love that he's letting Hal go on and on and on. Note to self, Batman, Green Lantern can handle anything, and it's all like Hal's posturing because he's looking up to Batman as an urban legend. So he wants this guy to acknowledge Hal as being a superior, or at least an equal. Because don't you get that from Hal?
I would say Hal wants that nod of respect to him. I wouldn't say he's looking at Bruce to be an equal. I think he wants Bruce to say, "Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that."
Mm-hmm. And Hal's doing his own way of trying to analyze him. So they're saying, "So what are your powers anyway? You can't fly? Nope. Super strength? Nope. Hold on a second. You're not just some guy in a bat costume, are you? Are you freaking kidding me?" And I could see a guy like Hal going, with all Hal's been through enough at this point that as Green Lantern, he knows that as Green Lantern, there's just amazing things out there, and this ring is needed to protect him. Bruce is doing this without that protection, and that's something that, he can't fathom. How could you be doing what I do, standing toe-to-toe with what I am, without the powers? And it's an interesting, distinction between the two. I loved Bruce in this moment, though, because when he took the ring off, just the smile and smirk on his face. But it wasn't that, All-Star Batman, there was a cockiness.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? There was a little different swagger. I actually give Lee a lot of credit for, and the whole art team, inks and everything, because it's the same art team from All-Star Batman and Robin. I love that visually this does not look like that cocky guy. I don't want to punch this guy. I think Batman's... first of all, I think Hal Jordan's cool in this. Young and a little inexperienced, but still cool. He's not losing anything in any of this sequence for me. And Bruce, the same thing. In both of those cases, I enjoyed All-Star Batman and Robin, but I wanted to punch both of them in it.
Yeah. And I liked seeing once he sees the ring, once Hal starts his suit starts fading, he's like, hey, you won't do that again unless I want to. And it was a nice little just kind of, again, it's not cockiness. It's more of feeling him out, more of getting an understanding of who Hal is. Because it's right to the point where Hal's ready to start to go to blows. He's like, hold on, stop, look. And points out that's where the bad guy is. And it was just a great, kind of play leading up to that where at one point in time, Hal's thinking, okay, this guy's picking a fight with me. He wants to throw down with me. But Bruce is like, no, it's really kind of it's Bruce studying Hal, seeing what kind of guy he is. He just took away his weapon. How does, Hal react to that? Well, first thing, bam, he's back to being focused again. It was kind of like, I kind of attribute it to saying, okay, let me give this guy a little wake-up message. Let me give this guy a little wake-up call. Let him know that there's something out there. Yeah, he's got.
And you should think
power,
first. Wait, and you should think first, because that I'd be worried if I thought you could think. Mm-hmm. That wasn't just a dig to get under Hal's skin. I think what he's trying to say is you need to start thinking first. You can't, because Hal relies on the ring he just rushes into a situation, relies on the ring to handle anything, and we see this later in the issue in a big way. But it's been consistently through this. And Bruce is telling him right here, you need to be quiet here. Back it off. And Hal thought he was going for a punch there. All-Star Batman would have.
Yeah.
This guy would not. And that thinking part, it was not a throwaway. Bruce is trying to tell him, you need to start thinking first.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're seeing this exact same way.
It's what I loved. I loved this sequence of events. And they didn't take anything away from either hero. Because I'm definitely getting here that Bruce is, out of the two, it's really clear that Bruce has more experience.
Oh, definitely. Bruce is, I think Bruce has had more training, he's physically had to be ready to be Batman. Where Hal, he's had the training. Yeah, he's probably had some missions on Oa. He's dealt with, Kilowog, etc. But he hasn't had the years of discipline that Bruce has had to go through this. And I kind of see this as Bruce, kind of trying to help along this younger hero without saying, I will be your mentor. I will tell you what you need to do. Instead, he's like, hey, just kind of like you don't want to be bossy when you're trying to help somebody because then they'll naturally, resist you. Especially, you can tell from Hal's personality that really wouldn't work too well. So here he's trying to give him the lessons, show him what, get him thinking, just outside what his normal comfort zone is. And maybe later on, there could be even more training, there could be more discussions, there could be more stuff.
They've said before that Bruce has been operating longer, though. And the fact that Hal said, you're real, you gotta remember, Batman's not a guy that would be appearing in the papers the way like a Hal Jordan would be or a Superman would be. Because Bruce would stick to the shadows and all that. He's an urban legend. In order to become an urban legend, there has to be a decent amount of time. of operating. And they've said that before, that Bruce has been operating longer, in this particular case. It's interesting to see the distinction. Now, when I say longer, I don't mean that, Bruce has been operating 30 years or anything. I don't mean it that way. I'm saying that, he's been around at least a year more than Hal, in the operations of it. We've seen, this is a guy who's gone through the events of year one, already at this point, but doesn't have the relationship yet with the Gotham City Police Department. So that's the kind of thing that, at least that's the way I'm reading this. But I love, this whole sequence with the which is a mother box, right? Isn't that what that is? Because the pain?
I took it as.
Yeah. I mean, that was awesome.
And again, Hal jumped the gun. He's like, that's a bomb. And he leaps in there, and Bruce is like, hold on. Granted, luckily Hal's able to throw the safe around him, which, again, is a cool, a nice, cool construct. You'd think, okay, instead of just going with the traditional energy bubble protecting them, no, he constructed a safe around them. Old school, kind of big spinning dial on the front. I thought that was kind of a neat way to show just how Hal is creating his constructs. They're not sticking with just old school traditional, just a plain boring energy sphere, energy square.
Well,
there's actually some details to it.
You know why he couldn't? Because he didn't just have to protect himself.
Mm-hmm.
He built that safe to protect Bruce.
I think it would have built the safe even if it was just him.
See, I don't know on that end if it necessarily, and I mean, I have no issue if he would have. You might be 100% correct, but I loved the distinction that, I mean, if anything, the size of the shape that was generated, agreeing with you and saying, okay, let's say you're right, because I don't know if you're right or wrong on that, so I'm going to totally bow out of that because you're making perfect sense to me. Maybe this Hal does that now. Does constructs to protect himself, but we're still seeing the energy around him. So I'm sure if that bomb went off, that energy shield that's around him right now, the energy field would have protected Hal, but it wouldn't have protected Bruce, not the way the safe did. So maybe Hal would. You're right. Maybe Hal constructs constructs anyway to protect himself and anything. Because we've seen Hal do that kind of stuff before too. So. Yeah, you're right on that. I loved the distinction, though, that this was constructed in a way, because I'm giving a lot of props to Bruce's experience here, but I got to give props to the heroism of Hal in this moment. This is not a guy who hates Batman. This is a guy who is like, I've got to protect this guy too. They're both realizing they've got the same goals. Their philosophical differences are really coming from the fact of the way they operate. They're realizing that they're both going for the same end game,
Yeah.
And I like that. And see, that's the distinction too between the two. These are not two guys throwing fists at each other, and I think that's like, I did not want to see that. Like, we might see Batman and Hal Jordan argue and throw the fist later issues. I have no problem with that. It's kind of a classic thing between the two of them. Go ahead and do it. I'm glad it wasn't here. I don't know why. I think that distinction was important in their meeting. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Oh, no, I'm definitely in agreement on that one. Because, again, they do operate differently. One operates in the light up front, bright and, shiny, and the other one's in the shadows. And, the comment you made earlier about how probably Hal, after saving someone, probably has a little chat with him. Hey, how you doing? Hey, where you from? Oh, cool. That friendliness and the style that is Hal Jordan. While Bruce, he'll save somebody, they probably won't even see anything of him. He'll just been a whoosh kind of, blur out of nowhere. This guy comes in, he takes him out, and then he's gone and back into the shadows. It's part of the mystery. He wants people to be afraid of him. He wants people not to think he's human. He wants them to think he's some type of animal, monster, some type of crazy creature. All those things help Bruce's end game, but they're both sitting there studying this box. They're both looking at this, knowing, okay, this is something that needs to be dealt with.
Action Comics predates this.
It does?
Yeah, remember they said that's the Zero issue.
Yeah,
Superman,
yeah.
I mean, Superman was the first hero on the scene.
Right.
So that predates this. And what actually verifies the fact that Batman's been around for at least a decent while, it doesn't look like a bomb, it's more like an alien computer. Alien, maybe this is connected to that guy in Metropolis. He is, and he's dangerous, and he talks about how he researched him and his power levels.
Yeah.
Which I don't take that to be something Bruce would do while he was training. That's something Bruce did while he was already in Batman mode.
Yeah, or he's already back in Gotham getting ready to do the final pieces. Maybe during Batman Year 1 is when Superman hits the scenes. There's definitely Bruce definitely has more experience and more time in costume than Hal, and probably even Superman.
Do you think there's a Robin at this stage?
No.
Okay, and I don't know that I don't know that I agree or disagree with you on that, because there's been nothing to verify either way. I'm more asking the question because that's a question I'm asking. Is there a Robin yet? I don't know. I could see it going either way because we're not seeing him how he operates solo. Yeah, I mean, what he operates like in his own book. I'm curious to see if there will be any distinction on that.
Yeah, I think what it is there wouldn't be a Robin until Bruce is more comfortable being around other people. I think the JLA interaction makes him more comfortable being around other heroes. Which
that wasn't why he had
Robin.
Remember with Dick Grayson, it wasn't being comfortable around other people that made him take in Dick Grayson. It was a connection with the same kind of loss with Dick Grayson. I would agree if we were talking about like a Tim Drake, for example, who didn't go through the loss that Bruce did at that time. But Dick Grayson, now this doesn't mean that I'm disagreeing with you. I don't know that there is a Robin yet, so I'm agreeing with you on that. But I don't think the Justice League, one way or another, I think he could have a Robin before the Justice League because he did. Just because I've read those stories. But I don't know that was what happened in this world. I'm agreeing with you. There's a very good possibility the Justice League came first. And maybe that is something we'll find out helped him. I don't know. Maybe you're right on that end. We're not going to get a lot of that storytelling, though. So I'm guessing the original way he met Robin, met Dick Grayson, still stands.
Oh,
I don't think that's changed.
And just for the record, I think I just found our mystery person.
Oh, yeah, she's at the game.
The game, yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I've gone through, after you told me that she's in the book, I've looked through this book at least 2 times, and I kept checking all the background crowd scenes, all the rooftop scenes, and I must have looked at this panel at least, twice, and I didn't see her until just now I see her.
It's funny.
That's nice.
It's funny, as you're looking at that, I'm laughing at myself. I'm like, it's funny how passionate I get when I'm speculating. Because I'm laughing. The stuff that you and I have argued over between both of these books is really so ridiculous because we're speculating. Like, I have no proof on a lot of these things. It's just my passionate thoughts. Same thing with you. I mean, I love when we have these debates because it really comes from the standpoint of you and I both enjoyed these issues. And we just, are really digging these characters so much that we're defending positions on them. But I think I'm defending the Robin position. I have no idea whether or not he has a Robin now. I want to know, and that's what's driving I even asked the question. But I find this fascinating that this is such it's one of the reasons why I love doing this show, because the conversations you and I have are such geeky comic shop chats. This is the conversations we've always wanted to have.
Something else I just noticed? Yeah, and I just realized it. We're seeing Vic Stone playing football.
Oh, yeah.
He plays for Ford, but they're the Ford Titans.
Oh, yeah.
You can see on the field, Titan. I'm like, oh, Titans, cool.
So he originally was a part of the Titans. That was a neat little nod, because obviously he's not going to be.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, that's kind of cool. I wonder what her being there on the field has to do with this, though. Is it that she's watching them from the standpoint of knowing what's happening with Darkseid? Yeah,
and again, who is she? Is she one of the new gods? Is she something else? I don't know. And maybe she knows what's going to happen to Vic, so she's there at the beginning of Vic, or maybe she'll bring about whatever it is that creates Vic.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see what the history is like for what does this mean for Dick Grayson and Starfire? I guess, until we see how this arc ends, we don't know. Because didn't they say that Dick Grayson did have a relationship with Starfire in this world?
In the continuity, he did.
So that doesn't necessarily mean that... Well, they could still be on the Titans that Cyborg wasn't.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about this origin of Vic? How you liking this so far? I mean, I know we haven't seen him as Cyborg yet, but we're kind of seeing the world through his eyes. I really like when he's like the everyman. And we hear this is kind of a way to know that his dad researches heroes, researches metahumans and stuff like that. So, there's going to be kind of a tie into this.
Oh, definitely kind of like this. It's another humanizing, letting us know who these people are, who, Cyborg, is before he becomes Cyborg. Lets us, kind of gives us an understanding of Vic. The dad is some type of scientist, so that's going to lay down the groundwork to him becoming Cyborg. He researches and studies the metas that have started appearing on the scene. So again, it's another connection to it. The big questions always run through your head. how, what happens to him that makes him become cyborg? Where does that come from? And it's a neat thing to see this playing out because one, all the college recruiters want to talk to him because he's just, he's the star athlete, but they're like, hey, not until his dad's here. And the dad doesn't show up to the games, and he's like on the phone with the dad saying, hey, I really thought you were going to be here this time. You promised. And, I don't know if you care, but we won. And his teammates are looking at him thinking, oh, he's got this perfect life. And to him, it's not a perfect life. He's got, this problem where he doesn't have a good relationship with his father. He wishes his dad was there for him, and he actually probably wishes that his dad would just communicate with him, because he makes the reference later on when they see the green jet fly overhead, like, yeah, my dad doesn't talk to me about anything. So there's no relationship between the two of them through just that one sequence and just the way he's talking on the phone and leaving a message with his father.
He's obsessed with his top secret work. And really, he's sworn to secrecy, obviously, because they're probably working with sensitive things, obviously to probably find a way to counter the rising metahuman threat. You know what I mean? And that research is going to obviously lead to what happens to Vic. We see that coming, the writings on the wall from it.
Yeah.
But, Dad coming from the standpoint of, I don't think it's not that Dad doesn't love his son, it's that Dad is so obsessed and absorbed with his research and his work that I think that's a fairly common thing. Finding balance in life is something I think all of us face. Trying to make sure that we're covering all bases and being there for people. I look at just from work and doing a podcast, the amount of time friends of mine that I want to give time to. You and I obviously talk quite a bit. But, there's a lot of friends of mine who, even in the podcasting community, there's fellow podcasters who are very good friends of mine. They're people who I really consider close friends who, I talk to rarely. And when I say rarely, I mean, I don't get to talk to them every week like I'd like to or things like that. And it's really more of an issue of time. Our schedules get so busy and so hectic. I really enjoy their company, though, and the conversations that I have with them. And then, my friends off of, the podcasting community that and not even just fellow podcasters, listeners who I've become friends with over the years. You and I have met a lot of listeners at conventions that we've built great relationships with, and I consider them true friends. And time we don't get to talk to them as much as I'd like to. So that's one of the interesting things about this. I connect with the lack of balance for Vic and his father, because it's very hard when you have any kind of responsibilities in your life, to balance and juggle that. It is, you and I have friends who we've known for years who I see every few years. And I know some of them maybe you haven't seen, as much as you'd like to as well. My own relationship with my father. I love my dad dearly. We didn't talk as much as I did with my mom. And that's not his fault. That's life. But it is, I was connected with Vic on that level. I'm like, boy, I don't talk to my dad as much as I did my mom. There's a different relationship there. It's not as, I'm more open to talking to my mom about anything. Like my dad, I have certain topic areas that I cover with him. I don't know if you have this relationship, but I do. And it's not my dad's fault. And I don't know if I'd consider it my fault either. We just don't talk the same way that my mom and I do, and a lot of that is due to this type of thing. It's just kind of the way life works out sometimes. I love this kind of stuff. I love when characters feel real, and I think that's what I'm trying to illustrate here, and why this issue blew me away. Because I think I'm very. If you look at this, we were introduced to 3 Justice Leaguers right now. And throughout the first read-through, straight on through the second, I read it back-to-back that night, like I mentioned. The one thing that really struck me is I connected with the humanity of these characters right away. Recognizing this is all of them at the start of their career, or even in Vic's case, predating his career. Knowing that they're younger, knowing this is not the Batman we saw at the end of Flashpoint. He's not there yet. That was something that I really enjoyed how this was laid out. This was a very good move on DC's part. To give us kind of a new history of the Justice League and an idea of how these characters interact and meet each other. I'm going to be curious to see, after this 5-year arc, what in the Justice League's history is still in place. Because they've got a lot of years in place. How much of that is in place? What members of the League existed? Did the Detroit League happen? I don't know. I don't know how all this is going to play out. But this was... when we see the plane land and it dissipates and you see Bruce do the roll into action. That's an action pose when he's there. He's ready to analyze the situation. I love that the mother box is attached to his utility belt. That's a clue. And I wonder if that's going to come into play. It's got to, right?
Well, I think what it'll be, we get them hit the ground run. Basically, Bruce hits the ground running, hits the ground ready for anything. And that's just how he is, and that's who he is. While Hal kind of like just, as it's dissipating, he makes the cool-looking landing because that's Hal's style. And I thought that was a cool play out where Hal's like, hey, I got this handled here. And he even puts Bruce inside a box. And in a way, it's kind of I don't want to say a dismissive because he doesn't completely dismiss Bruce, but it is one of those things where, again, Hal does want the accolades, does want the, wow, you are better than me kind of discussion, kind of moment. And it's just part of Hal's personality, part of his own personal weaknesses that he may have, just in him. But I thought that was just a cool play out because Bruce is like sitting there going, wait, look, there's battle damage around here. And he wants to tell him just like the fight we had. But Hal cuts him off saying, here's the plan, I'll restrain the guy, you wait here. And I thought that whole sequencing playing out was a really cool, again, expression of Hal's greenness, his, just his personal style, and just his not, as much as Bruce isn't a team player, right now Hal is being the non-team player.
Well, it's also his lack of experience, thinking that the power ring means that he's the best one suited to go in, and he's not listening to Bruce's counsel. And that is a rookie mistake. And this is a rookie here. And it was funny how I didn't hate Hal for this. I didn't, disrespect him for this. I took it as he's, like you said, he's green. And there really is no lack of a better term. This guy is not yet, experienced. The Hal I think we're going to see after this arc when we see it, Justice League set in present day. And I think it is after this arc, right? Is just the initial arc that's supposed to be 5 years ago?
I believe so.
However long they wind up, showing us the history of the Justice League, I'm going to be very interested to see what the League looks like when we see these characters set in present day. The Hal that's been through Blackest Night, Sinestro Corps, all that stuff is then interacting with this League. I don't know. I like the formation of this. The whole Superman bursting out of there bit, where he's like, I don't handle easily. Now, I'm going to say this. I've had my issues with the costume. I'm still not sold. It looks really good here on the last page. It does. I gotta give them credit because it's something I'm not so comfortable with. And I don't know necessarily what I'd do differently. I don't know, maybe it's the whole armored suit thing, and I really am. It's the classic comic fan that's having an issue. It really is. I know you're already sold on it and all that. It looks really good here, and I'm going to admit that. Saying that I'm still tentative on it. I'm still tentative on the suit. But it looks really good here. I got credit where credit's due. I think I've just got to get used to it. It's the one suit that I'm having an issue with. Did you see the most recent shots from the Man of Steel?
No, I haven't.
I don't know. It looks like they're going more towards this type of a suit with him, but darker. It's like a darker blue. I do like the darker blue. It's more of a midnight blue.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And I don't know if I would go that way in the comic with him because, there is something iconic about this particular color tone scheme with him in the comic. I think it works better on the actor. It's not him with the cape on and everything, so I don't know what the end result's going to look like with it on the film. But it does look like they're going like kind of an amalgamation of what we did. You saw the original shot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is one where at least in the shot that they showed, he doesn't have the underwear on the outside.
Good. I do like this. I like the look before. Now seeing him kind of in a cool action pose, and just this works for me. One, it's a younger Clark, it's a younger Superman, so yeah, he's going to have a little different tweaks on the costume. Mm-hmm. Who knows what the present day continuity will look like? Maybe there'll be modifications. I don't know. If we're going to change some stuff, let's change it. Let's have some fun with it. Let's let the creative teams actually do something with it. Yeah,
I don't hate it. I got to let it grow on me. It's one of those things where I got to be honest with you. This page, I really do like. I like the art in this page, and it's one of those where I'm like, wow, okay, when it's drawn like this, I do like it. I do need to read the story, I think, of the formation of the suit. I'm glad that's coming. I
definitely want to read that.
I think that is going to be the selling point for me, I one way or the other. where I'm either going to like that or I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know. I got to say, I did like this sequence where he burst out and he's like, so what can you do? Which has been an ongoing running theme in the whole issue. I don't know. I really loved the issue. And that's the funny part. I'm going to say again, that didn't take anything away from my enjoyment of the issue. I loved the issue. I loved Superman's appearance in this. I loved how that all worked out. So this costume thing for me is a minor thing, but it is something I'm still wrapping my head around. And, this is somebody who's saying, this issue blew me away. That's my one. If there's one thing in this issue I would say that I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around, it's that costume. And I think it's just it's that fan in me that's kind of like, the same fan that's been digging in stupid arguments that I've been having with you for no reason. It's that fan that's having the issue with it. And I totally agree with you. Like, you'll make comments about how, well, this is, I like the armor. I like every time you say the stuff, your reasons why you're liking it. I'm like, I get that. I get everything you're saying. And I do think you're helping me warm up to it. It's just, I think I need time. And just to really read, I think I need to read the story as to why. I love the sketchbook in the back.
Yes. Kind of showing the different costumes, showing just and especially like just the kind of the birth of a page, going through the step-by-steps. I like seeing stuff like that. It's a nice little extra, a little add-on, just a little something.
Now, here's the dumb thing. I kind of like the other version of Superman's costume on there. The little gauntlets and stuff. I don't know why. And I don't know that I would say that I would want that to be the suit, that they're doing now. I think, they probably made the right decision because the one that he has now is actually harkens a little more to the traditional. Because the S on that one actually is a little bit more like Supergirl's than the one that we see now, which is a little closer to the traditional. I don't know. It's very, very funny. Liked Wonder Woman's, but I still like the pant look.
Yes. I definitely like the pant look over, the short shorts.
Which I can't believe I'm saying that. I actually really like when you see the whole team there. I love the Wonder Woman in that shot.
Yeah. The Aquaman with the more crustacean style armor instead of a chain link thing, I think that is cool.
I'd kind of like to see that more of his dress look, though, or something, because I like his look on the cover. The one that's, those... Because this is the cover for the second print. I don't know if you saw that. This team shot is the cover for the second print.
Oh, cool.
So when you see him with the team, the final shot, except for Wonder Woman, I know that she's been tweaked to not have the pants anymore. But I do, because I like the traditional scaly shirt and all that. I agree with you, though, that I do like the crustacean-looking armor. It's just I'd kind of more like to see that be some kind of dress suit. I'm glad to see that there might be a foot soldier that carries this on, like you mentioned in the blurb, because I wouldn't mind seeing that look again, and I wouldn't mind seeing it on him. I just don't know that I want to see it all the time. Because the cover for his book, I really like the look of the cover on his book, what he looks like there. I'm very sold on that, because they did tweak it when he came back in Brightest Day. It was little tweaks, but I liked the tweaking that they did with the character and his whole look there. Green Lanterns, I'm glad they didn't go with that look. Not that it was awful or anything. I mean, I wouldn't sit there and go, oh my God, they made Hal unrecognizable. It's not that. I really like the choice that they made to stick more traditional with Hal.
Yes.
But what characters do you think they're pointing to that ended up borrowing that or taking elements of that look? Some of it I don't know, some of it went to Batgirl? I don't know. Because I want to see her full look, because it seems like there's some slight tweaks to her costume. I don't know. I'm going to I think how it is now, I'm trying to find it in places probably where it isn't, because it says in there that can you spot them? Because it said design elements made their way into other non-Justice League characters, though. Can you spot them? So I think I'm going to be looking all over for the Hal designs on other characters. Do you enjoy this stuff? Like when they do the sketch material and stuff, like the cover that wasn't, the one that was kind of the original sketch cover that Aquaman ended up changing his location on, and so did Cyborg. Because they flip-flop those two characters. And Batman's pose is slightly different. So is Wonder Woman's.
Yeah, I like as I said, I like these little extra stuff. It's a kind of a neat little thing at the end there. It's, I don't know, more bang for your buck, more, makes you, again, it's all part of the open dialogue and just the fact that I don't feel like things are, this isn't a hidden, this is a well thought out plan. This is something laid out, and seeing the previous versions of other stuff they were thinking about going with and other variations and tweaks that we may see later on, who knows. I like seeing that kind of stuff.
Do you read those DC Nation things at the end?
Yeah, I did, and they're changing it over
After
to,
8 years, I like the reasoning behind it. And it looks like DC Nation's going to be on Cartoon Network. I actually really, I kind of got a little like, I don't want to say I got choked. I didn't go that far with it, but I was kind of like, wow, it's been 8 years of this.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they're going to keep that going. I wonder about letter columns.
I don't know. I hope they keep it.
I do too.
Because I've enjoyed that, and I like reading it. And a couple of times I've been tempted to write in, and then I just and I don't. But I part of me still wants to do it. So I hope they keep it just so I'll have another shot at writing in.
Yeah, it's not even the writing in thing for me so much as I enjoy reading other... I think, what it is, because we do so much commentary on it, hours and hours every week. I don't always feel the necessary need to write in, but I like reading other people's comments and why, I like seeing, like, for Justice League, a great example, Justice League of America, the title predated this one. I liked seeing, with a lot of the negativity that went towards the Robinson end, I liked seeing so many positives in the book for different reasons than even I liked it. You know what I mean? It was nice to see people jumping on the book and liking the book for different reasons than I did. I don't know. That was something that I found particularly enjoyable and endearing about this. I do hope letter columns stick around because I like hearing from other fans and questions people were asking and speculation people had about the future, of characters and things. I don't know. I kind of get into that stuff. And it's funny. I read the letter columns more this time around than I think I ever did.
Oh, big time for me. I never read them as a kid because I was like, whatever. I didn't think of it. But now, as soon as they came back, I'm like, oh, cool, let me read. And I'd go through and I'd read them all and just like, oh, okay.
So, yeah, I want them. I want them for just the same reason, you're mentioning. I think there's something cool about them this time. Was this everything you expected it to be? Or was it more? Or was it kind of right in where you were in your wheelhouse, where you were thinking it was going to go? How did this work out for you?
This really blew me away. Mm-hmm. I was absolutely just wow, kind of. I was like, wow, it just, and I didn't know what to expect. I was hoping it would be good. I was like, I hope they pull this off. I'd like a nice, Justice League story or some build up, and it really did wow me. So there was a definite wow factor here. There was a definite bam. So I'm going to say it exceeded my expectations.
Amen. I agree with you because I walked in feeling I was going to enjoy it, feeling I was going to be excited, coming off of the fact that the Justice League of America with the current team, I really enjoyed what James Robinson was doing. So I was sitting here saying to myself, like, okay, James Robinson kind of reinvigorated it for me with the team that he put in there. I loved his build, because he built that team up from the ground up, and dealing with the fact that James Robinson had to make some alterations to his team based on events. And yet he built a team that by the end of it really felt like a strong JLA. I really felt like it was a team that had come together. It was interesting. And, to see this team coming from the ground zero, going all the way back to the history of DC, knowing there's no JSA now, who, my love for JSA, that was the part where I was like, wow, how am I going to feel about a Justice League that's forming now, this time around again? Because as a kid, this is the way the Justice League was. In the sense that I didn't read the formation of the Justice League as a kid. I, read the 70s Justice League, the Satellite League, and stuff like that. But one of the things that I really dug about this was you got to see the formation of this without the JSA, knowing now that there is going to be a JSA again, and it looks like it's probably going to be on Earth too, because obviously they're not going to alter this continuity to have them be a part of this world because it ruins kind of like everything they've set up here. Kind of undoes everything. I like this a lot. I mean, that night I read, like I said, I read through Flashpoint. Both of those are oversized issues too. And I reread this immediately just because I wanted to. Not for the show, had nothing to do with that. My first read through wasn't for the show. I just read it as a fan. Knowing that you and I were going to record, because we originally planned to record on Thursday. So I knew I had all of Wednesday to read it again, and then even after I came home from work today, I knew I would have an opportunity to read this book again. So I wasn't worried about getting enough reads in to be prepared for this discussion. I reread it Tuesday night just because I was so into it, and there was a magic to it again. And that was, for me, something that I really enjoyed. And a lot of that enjoyment, I'm going to say again, reading Flashpoint number 5 prior to it and those ending sequences, knowing that it was this universe's Bruce Wayne and Barry Allen were critical to my enjoyment of Justice League. there was a relationship there. I don't know if you had that experience, if that mattered to you at all, or if the issue stood on its own. I think it set a tone and a place for me, though, on where this book is heading. Like, I know where this book is heading based on Flashpoint. Now I'm in this book, I want to read how they get there. I don't know if that was your experience or if it was different. Doesn't matter. What was that your? Were you thinking that way, or was it just kind of you enjoyed this on its own for what it was?
No, there was a definite energy connection between the two. Because I liked seeing the birth of the universe, seeing where they went through, and then just that, because that was a really cool Barry Bruce moment, and I liked seeing just that, that whole emotional connection that we had there. And as I said, some people could see that as an anticlimactic. For me, that was just a great ending to a fabulous story. And when you have those things where you're like, yes, oh, this is awesome, and you're sitting there and you're studying the page, and you're getting into this emotional connection. I was already on a roller coaster, flying high at the end of 5. So then I jumped into 1, and I was like, bam, hit the ground running. I'm like, oh, this is cool. So it was definitely a wonderful lead-in, and it was just, I was so glad that the ending to Flashpoint lived up and or exceeded my expectations. So I was, if this expectations are exceeded, we're jumping into Justice League. I read Justice League. I was wowed by Justice League. I'm like, yes, this, the new DCU is hitting like a hammer, and I was really excited.
Amen. This is one of those where I'm just sitting back listening to you going, yep, if I could high five you right now, I would.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
Hey guys, just have a comment here. I've never listened to the show, but I needed to vent somewhere. Anyway, I'm a huge Superboy Prime fan, and I just read this last arc of the Teen Titans, and let me just start with this. Okay, first of all, Superboy Prime, right? Killed the first Superman, took on the Titans, JLA, JSA, the Doom Patrol all at the same time, and still came up on top. Single greatest mass murderer of Green Lanterns in history for a while, and he needed a team of dipshits and clones to take on the Titans. Not only that, they all lost. And to the Teen Titans, come on. I mean, I know it's a 100th issue and everything, but they barely could scratch him before, and now he's taking a punch at a time and taking out by the Titans. Wow, I can't believe that. Anyway, I guess I'll listen to your podcast now. Thanks.
See, now, this is a great example of perspective. I took it as, remember the end of Legion of Three Worlds, where he was depowered?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I took it as, and I don't know that whether he's right or I don't know that there really is a right or wrong to this. So it's a great example of kind of like you and I, the many debates you and I have had on this episode. And you might have seen this differently than I did. I took it as his power levels were not what they were when he had on like that power suit where we saw him taking on all those people. We saw him really supercharged for quite a bit of everything he's mentioning. So I'm agreeing with everything when he's talking about the greatest mass murder, all that stuff. I read those stories and I agree with him. He was very interesting in all those. I liked the character a lot and all. So his passion for the character, I'm getting. I see him the same way he does. The thing is, in the Titans arc, though, I'm reading it that this is the character post Legion of Three Worlds. He was depowered. Remember at the end of Legion of Three Worlds, you got to see a little bit of his, his heat vision come back, and then we saw how things changed. I took it that the power levels never got back to what they were when he was doing all those things. But how did you see it?
We're seeing the exact same way. This is not the same Superboy. Well, it's the same Superboy Prime, but he's not his old self. Mm-hmm. That's why he went to a team. That's why he pulled up his own version of the Titans, because his power levels weren't what it was before, and he knew that. So he knew he needed some backup. He needed some other, cannon fodder, some pawns, whatever you want to call his team.
Right. Right.
He needed somebody out there that would distract and throw off the Titans. And the reason the Titans were able to beat him was because they do work together as a unit. Mm-hmm. And he was one individual with a bunch of other individuals around him. The initial battle, he was winning, and he was winning well because the Titans weren't in a group. Once the Titans get together, once you get that team fighting as one conscious unit, you have a serious powerhouse going on, and that's always been the strength of the Titans. That's why it's Titans together. You work together as a unit. You fight together as a team. It's the strength of the overall group is much more powerful than one single individual. Plus, you also add to the fact that Prime picked a really bad time to mess with Connor. Connor was really at that point where he's like, I need to hit somebody. I need to hit somebody hard. And it's you push a hero so much, and he's going to fight back hard. Well, Prime had his previous encounters where he killed Connor. He took him down. And here's the thing: Connor's like, not going to happen again. This is the rematch. This is the rubber match, however you want to refer to it as. But this again, it's Prime wasn't at his best, but the Titans were at their best, and I think that's why they were able to take him. And in the end, they didn't completely take him because they couldn't, completely stop him. So I'm sure we'll see Prime again sometime soon. Some other incarnation with the New 52.
Well, and one other thing, too, he's right about one of the things he's saying. This was the goodbye to this Titans, because the Titans that we're going to see in the New 52 is starting off from the beginning.
Yeah.
So none of this happened, with them. I mean, that's something we already know. So this was kind of a, ending on a high note, giving them their last battle, their great, victory at the end. And he's right. That was part of the intention there. So I agree with what is, and whether or not you like that at the end result, there's no right or wrong on that. I liked the issue. I thought it was a great issue, and I did take it that this is not the same power levels as before. Now, that doesn't take anything away from the Titans, because I do think they needed to be a unit in order to take him down and defeat him, even with the fact that he had less power, than he's had before, because he is Superboy Prime. So it was only as a unit that they were able to get together and defeat him, and I liked that was the reason why they won. And these are veterans. At this point in time, look how much Wonder Girl's been through. Look how much Connor's been through. Look how much, Tim Drake, whatever you want to call him, has been through. Kid Flash has been the Flash and back again. There's a lot that's going on. Beast Boy, and Raven, and now Solstice with just the whole thing. I thought it ended well. I really, really did. And I give him again respect that you can feel the way you like about it. And thanks for calling. Because I think it's an interesting discussion point, and hopefully, you like the show when you listen. So, thanks for giving us a shot, however you feel.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Brandon. This is my second time calling you guys. I'm not on the forums yet, but I did call you guys a couple months ago. We were talking about when Flashpoint was first about to come out, and I mentioned to you guys about how you got me into Secret 6, and you gave me a couple of trade paperbacks that I could read. I've just called because I just finished reading Justice League #1 and Flashpoint #5, and I'm like a loss for words because I think that Flashpoint was #5 was the ultimate of endings for the DC universe that's being rebooted, and for Justice League #1 to be I think a great start for the relaunch. I'm guessing from reading Flashpoint #5 that this is our Barry that we've had since the, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say old DCU because it's not really the old one. If you do read Flashpoint #5, it really is kind of like a reboot because he does remember everything, and you could see from the point where he runs to Bruce Wayne when he goes into the Batcave that he does remember everything from the past. He remembers everything from what happened within the Flashpoint timeline, but he does realize that there's something different going on to this universe. I don't think that personally, I don't think that's going to affect the relaunch. I don't think it's going to have a point where he's going to sit there and say anything is not right or it's not what it's supposed to be. But I just love how they linked it together where he's actually that one character, and because of his powers and because of he gets his speed with time manipulation, that he can pretty much be that one grounded rock between the universes, which I think is pretty awesome. This is more of a short voicemail because I really don't have anything to talk about when it comes to comics. When it comes to DC, since it's just ended with everything, it's more on the lines of I just wanted to kind of express to you guys that because you guys been so supportive of the launch and so supportive of new stories, that I guess you guys wanted to hear from a fan's point of view of how much they actually loved how they ended it and how they started it. I am going to miss some of my titles. Like I used to read Birds. I love Gotham City Sirens. I just started reading Young Justice, and I'm guessing they're not changing that because that's a totally different universe. I'm a little intrigued to find out what they're going to be doing with Batman Incorporated, because I could be totally wrong, but I don't think that's changing, and I kind of want to know what's coming that Batman actually incorporated, and why did he need this pretty much global army to pretty much fight off. But I just want to say thank you guys for all that you do. Great shows, commentation on great stories, and I look forward to listening to and reading for more in the future. You guys have a great day.
He mentioned the forums, and, I honestly, I've got to shout that out more. We have a wonderful forum community. We also have a wonderful community of listeners on Facebook. I signed up for Google+, and it's the more active page seems to be my Sean Whalen one. All of these are in. If you go to our website, ragingbullets.com, click on About Us. There's direct links to all of these areas. And, Jim, you have a Facebook page. The Raging Bullets page on Facebook is mine. I have two. I have my regular Sean page and the Raging Bullets page. I want to shout out, in both the case of the forum and our Facebook page, and to any friends on Google+, but, in those two cases, we have a lot of active community members on both of those pages. Jim and I, a lot of times when we're not recording, we're, working on the next shows. We're making plans to, get together and record, doing research, reading, stuff like that, prepping. Plus, we have jobs in our lives, like all of you do, listening to the show. So we rely heavily on all of you. And I really want to just thank the fan community, whether you've called into the show like Brandon just did, whether you post in our forums, post on the Facebook page, you see a link somewhere, and you email it in. I really appreciate all of the things that fans do. I'm not always able to respond to every single person. I try really hard. Jim tries real hard to make sure we're keeping in contact with you in all of those areas. And plus, bring it. Obviously, the first priority for us is you guys are here to listen to the podcast. So our number one priority is always to get on here and record. That's why I always tell people, if you want us to respond directly, get on to the voicemails, because the podcast is our first priority, because that's what everybody listens to, whether you participate or not in any of those areas. But I do want to shout out that community of people that are really just great friends that keep our forums going when we're not able to post on every thread, and you're throwing up new commentary for each other to chat with. I love popping onto the forum and seeing a thread that somebody started and just seeing the interaction back and forth. I love that our show comments threads have like a real cool interaction from people. I love getting feisty on there sometimes, where I'll disagree, like you and I do on here. That's why I said, our community of listeners and podcast friends and everything, you guys are friends, and I love that we can get feisty with each other and respect each other in the end. There's been times where I've had the same crazy discussions that you and I have on here, Jim, with listeners who are friends of the show on here, people who I respect greatly. And, at the end of the day, it's always funny when you get to the end of these, 20-page threads, and the end result is nobody's wrong. It's really just for the perspective you're coming from. In Brandon's case, when he's talking about, Barry, it's an interesting point, because I've wrestled with this. What does Barry know? I don't think he knows about our world, but what do you think?
I don't think he knows. I think he only knows of two worlds. Mm-hmm. The current DC continuity, mm-hmm. the new DCU, and the Flashpoint world. Those are the only two worlds that Barry knows.
Because those timelines... He
doesn't know the before times.
Well, the way I'm looking at it is those three timelines merged. So what he knows from his history is from the merger of those timelines.
Right.
So he lost things that we consider facts from that. So he is aware that Flashpoint happened. Brandon's 100% correct.
Right.
And he is aware that his life predated Flashpoint, so he's aware of transitioning to that. But I don't think his history, his memory of his history from his childhood on through, you and I are totally in sync on this. So I do think Brandon's right to a certain extent. There are elements of it that he remembers before, but I don't think he sees this world that he came back to as different.
Right.
I think that he's what he does see is remembering his mother and that childhood that he had with her at the Flashpoint world. That's the part where he recognizes something is wrong because he knows he's got a second set of memories there. You and I are totally seeing it the same way.
At San Diego, I'm pretty sure it was even Jeff Johns said that there's not going to be a single character who will know of before the New 52.
Right.
There's not going to be that because they don't want to have that, safety net and or connection or just what that person would go through knowing the previous universe. They're all this is the universe. This is what they know.
Barry's aware that he caused an alternate reality and that he came back from it.
Right.
But he's not aware that the reality changed because of it. So at least that's the way I'm reading it. We don't have that 100% verified yet. So that is, that's speculation too. But in many ways, we are agreeing with Brandon to a certain extent because elements of that past before are part of the 3 timelines that merged. Because the 3 timelines that merged aren't the Flashpoint timeline, right?
Right. No, that's
a 4th timeline.
Right.
So that's an interesting part.
3 merged into 1, which is current continuity.
Right.
The Flashpoint timeline is a second one. So Barry knows of 2 continuities.
Right. Amen. I agree with that totally. That's kind of a fun discussion. Thanks for calling, Brandon. And for anybody, please call. One of the things on the show, very similar to the feisty discussions that Jim and I have. Feel free to call if you've got different opinions than we do. I'll respond to it, and Jim will respond to it, and we might be on different pages. But I like having different voices on the show with different opinions. A lot of times it is kind of Jim and I are speculating the same way Brandon is. So who knows who's right on this one. Here's the funny thing is, all 3 of us could be wrong.
See, I know I'm right.
Okay, Al.
Hey, I am wearing my ring right now.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm concentrating so you can't take it off my hand.
That's okay. You're telling me to remember this, Jim Seigelen can do everything?
Exactly. The sensei of whatnot can do everything.
All right. I'm going to what-foo you out of here.
Hello, Sean and Jim. Hi, it's Martin in Edinburgh. Just ringing because you were asking what we thought of the new Justice League and Flashpoint number 5. Well, Flashpoint number 5, I enjoyed the twists and turns, the emotion, the action, the colour, the art, but good gosh, Parry really, really cocked up this time. Wally West never messed up reality, did he? Anyway, that led to JLA, and I'd say that was pretty competent but lacked magic. There was no feeling that these are the world's greatest heroes. They're more like the world's greatest egos. What I'd like to read is good people coming together, not people who can barely stand one another, standing beside one another. I think it'll probably improve pretty quickly when new characters come in, but for a first issue, it was just a little bit mediocre. Anyway, keep up the good work. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Now, see, that's an interesting thing, and it's a great example of how, first of all, before we go any further, I want to shout out, I read Mart's blog regularly. It's dangermart.blogspot.com. If you go into the favorite blog section, it's under Too Dangerous for a Girl. So definitely check out his blog. We've got a lot of friends who have been putting under favorite blogs. And if I'm ever missing something that's a link of yours on the site, any friends like Mart, for example, like that, please feel free to post in our Facebook page, in our forums, stuff like that. We've been lucky and fortunate, especially recently, but throughout the history of the show, of people shouting us out and getting the word out about us. And, I try to, the best I can, to make sure that I'm always shouting out other friends of the show and that type of thing. Please feel free to post anything that you have that you think is relevant to our listening audience. Our listening audience is all comic fans. On our Facebook page, forums, shoot me an email and say, hey, Sean, could you put this link up? Especially if you're seeing that I'm blatantly missing one that I should have up there. I always want to support our friends of the show the way that you guys have all supported us. So I just kind of wanted to give a little editorial on that because Mart's always been so good at supporting us. So I just wanted to give him a little shout there as well on just his quality comic reviews that are over there. Now, did you read them as being as like hating each other? Because I didn't take it that way. I took it as these are guys feeling each other out. Green Lantern was definitely an experience, and that's what we're getting at this point. They are clearly what Mart says. They're not like these experienced veterans getting together that are just doing superheroic things. So it is different than the original Justice League getting together. So I do agree with him on that end. But I didn't get the vibe that like Batman and Green Lantern detest each other. Or that there was some ego throwing around there, but I also didn't take it like it was too extreme. But that was me. What's your take, Jim?
Yeah, I definitely did not take hate. Hal's arrogance, I think, is more of a cover-up for his own insecurities. Because I'm assuming some of the Hal's past is still in continuity, and so we know what kind of guy Hal was, and he had a lot of issues. So the over-the-top, Green Lantern can handle everything is kind of the cover-up for his own fear. His own, can I actually do this? Do I know what I'm doing? It's just, that's how I perceived Hal throughout this.
Well, wait, hang on. I also think after getting punched by Superman like he did, where Superman came bounding through,
yeah.
Hal's eating a little humble pie right now. So I'm going to be curious to see what Hal's like in issue 2.
Yeah.
There is on the Source blog a quick shot of Superman and Batman facing off. When I say facing off, it's like, high noon. One on one side, one on the other in pencils. I highly recommend checking out the Source just to see that beautiful artwork. That's cool. That's interesting on that part.
And here's the thing, that the face-off between those two, I don't think they're going to come to blows. I think Bruce is smart enough to recognize Clark's power levels that he knows not to try to punch him.
Look at his hands. Look at his hands in the picture.
Oh, okay.
They're not going to go to blows like he's going to punch him, but that's not always the way Batman operates. I think there's going to be, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back and correct myself a little bit. There is a possibility that like Bruce is just readying himself in case he needs to. But he's definitely, he's as much in the standoff as Clark is. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with the two. I actually would prefer, I'm going to say, I'm going to make a little prediction on this. I'm actually going to say you're right. And because I'm thinking about more what you're saying, and I'm thinking about what I liked so much about his face-off with Green Lantern. Right. I think it's going to be one of those misunderstanding things where we're going to see maybe the two of them being more of the veterans.
Yeah.
I'm going to be curious to see what it's like between them. Here's the unknown variable on this one. We don't know enough about Superman yet, Jim. Like, I know that Bruce, if possible, will react the way that he did with Hal, if possible. But he's going to ready himself. The question is, and the variable on this, is how is Clark going to react? We don't know.
Yeah, see, my guess, here's my guess how the full thing will lay out. Uh-huh. It'll be a Bruce and Clark kind of standoff, and Bruce basically feeling Clark out like he felt Hal, but Hal is going to retaliate for the punch. So any chance of completely peaceful dealings is going to get disrupted by a big, giant green fist or something like that crashing down on Clark. And Clark could very easily perceive it as a setup, that Bruce was trying to get him to drop his guard when Hal takes the shot, or even Hal's thinking that was Bruce's plan all along. So I think there's going to be some form of physical altercation, or something's going to happen between the three of them, but I don't see, Bruce going on an offensive. Yeah, if he's in a position, it's definitely a guarded position because he's not stupid. He's not going to stand there, hey, how you doing? Especially after seeing the power levels knowing what the power levels that Clark has. So, I kind of see there's definitely going to be a little superhero mix-up, but my guess is Clark also has one of those mother boxes or dealt with one of the parademons, and that's going to be the common bond that Bruce is able to start bringing them together on.
Because Bruce does note that Clark's been through a battle, so what battle has Clark been through?
Right.
We don't know what that is yet. Maybe that is related to this. I didn't see that swerve coming. That's an interesting point. I will say one thing. I do want to see the initial meetings and interactions between Superman and Batman gradually leading to kind of this, the precursor to the World's Finest team.
Yes.
I do want to see that being a part of this new 52. I'm not saying they have to instantly be best buddies and stuff like that, but I want to see, even if there's an exchange between the two, things that would lead to them respecting each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not saying that they have to, like I said, by the end of these 5 issues, we have to necessarily see why they are going to become good friends, but I would like to see echoes of that where we can see it, which is why there's that part of me that's hoping Hal's knocked out. Only because I could definitely see what you're saying happening. But there's that part of me that would like to see just these two somehow work it out together. And, seeing that foundation piece happen between these two. I don't know. I'm a big fan of the classic World's Finest team up. And it would be interesting to see the two of them kind of be the adults of the team starting off. I don't know. So we'll see how this all works out. Superman's the major variable for me. I think I'm going to have a different opinion of this based on what Action Comics looks like. Meaning that Action Comics takes place a little before this. Or, a decent amount before this. But I think that's going to set a tone for me. That's why I'm very tentative in saying how I think it's going to go. He's right about Flashpoint. Boy, did Barry mess up.
Oh, big time. And it was funny seeing Bruce, it was, not funny, cool. It was neat seeing, Bruce kind of comforting him and saying, hey, if I had your powers, I would have tried it. Don't think I haven't even thought about it now. So it's, Bruce has thought about that, doing that and trying to change the timeline, and could he do it, and what would happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Hello, Jim and Sean. This is Matt. I don't believe I'm on any forums that you're on, but I am a listener of the show lately through Stitcher, which is a really great service, by the way. I just had a couple of notes on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that were sort of comments to add to what you guys talked about on the show. The first thing is, as far as the death of the great detective, yes, they're referring to the story, actually, The Death of Sherlock Holmes, which was rather open-ended, and they'll get more into that. I guess we need to cover Moriarty in a little bit on the next episode. But there is an interesting thing. The character of Moriarty was actually created for that particular story, for the killing off of Sherlock Holmes. I suppose I shall leave you with that. There was something else, but I totally forgot what it was. All right, goodbye.
Did you know that?
No, I did not.
That was something, it's funny. I knew about the death of... I haven't read the Sherlock Holmes books. I've watched and listened to a lot of... I've listened to Sherlock Holmes audios. I've watched a lot of Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes. As a matter of fact, my first exposure to Sherlock Holmes was as a kid. There was a Batman big book and record set. The 33s. Those big records.
Yeah.
One side was a Grodd story. The other side was a Sherlock Holmes meets Batman story. Artwork was incredible. I still have it. I've got to find a way to put that on digital or something like that, so I can listen to it and read through the book again, because I loved the story. I had so many scratches on that as a kid because I listened to it so many times. But that was my first exposure to Sherlock Holmes, and grew to love the character because, there was this assumption that the character was Sherlock Holmes. Like, you never totally knew because the character denied it. But by the end of it, you were pretty clear that it really was Sherlock Holmes, if that makes sense. So that I started to like the character then through Batman again. It seems to be Batman's kind of my link to everything. Most people I seem to like because of Batman. So you're not connected to Batman, you're useless to me. I'm kidding. But it's funny, when he said that, the Moriarty thing, I always assumed that he was a foil of Sherlock Holmes from very early on. I didn't know that. I think it's because I've seen so much media with him in it.
Yeah, I kind of figured he was a regular, reoccurring character and multiple dealings and whatnot.
I wasn't listening to you because I didn't meet you through Batman. No, I'm with you. I made that assumption as well, so that was cool. Thank you for calling. I actually really appreciate that about listeners when they call in. We learn a lot of facts that way that we didn't know before, and that's part of, I think, the community of sharing. I think it makes this hobby so much cooler for all of us when we get some of those background facts, because I love those details, and sometimes that drives my reading. Like, there's a lot of reading I want to do because of this thing we've been doing with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which we're going to, after that special episode we've got coming up there, we're going back to League. We're skipping one episode. There's a mini show that's coming up real quick, and our next episode after that is going to be back to a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, then to the New 52. So I'm really excited for that.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Mark the Ziebler from Comic Forums. I just wanted to call. I just read Flashpoint 5 and Justice League number 1. Enjoyed Justice League number 1. Interested to see where it goes, and but just enjoyed seeing the characters in some ways sort of new and fresh, since I'm sort of relatively new to comics. Feels like they're starting almost from scratch a little bit. I would say looking at these characters in Justice League number 1 doesn't feel like they have a huge backstory, which could be very good for new readers. Also, Flashpoint number 5, thought it was a really interesting ending. Really liked the part at the end where Barry delivered the note to Bruce. And besides that, I just wanted to comment on Teen Titans 100. Really enjoyed Teen Titans as it wrapped up. Really liked how it ended. With just so many of the young heroes there fighting. Really enjoyed that. Also, Justice League of America, not the number 1 issue, but the one that just wrapped up. It was interesting to read that one. Sort of felt like the author had a lot more stories he wanted to write, but possibly didn't get a chance to. But just really enjoyed that whole run with the Dick Grayson Batman and Donna Troy and Jade, Jesse Quick, all those characters. They were sort of sad to see them not on the Justice League anymore, but that's okay. Anyway, enjoyed how things wrapped up in August. Thought that DC did a good job tying up all the arcs that I was reading, and interested to see what happens from here. Talk to y'all later. Bye.
It's an interesting energy right now. Like, it's funny to talk about, like, the Justice League is at a starting point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though they're going to be flashing, we know after this they're going to flash to present day. But, it is interesting to me talking about, like, Superman, the starting point of Superman. We're going to see that and what it looks like in this world. And knowing that it's not going to be the origin we're traditionally used to. I think there's going to be some major tweaks there to what Superman's origin's like, or thematically what that looks like. I'm glad Action Comics, because that's next week, isn't it? Action Comics, I'm almost positive. That's one I'm really anxious to read next week. I'm very interested in what's going on with Superman. So I don't know. I don't have too much to add to what he's saying. A lot of what he's saying kind of echoes what we were chatting about. Do you have anything?
Oh, no. I'm in agreement. There was some really cool endings to these story arcs. They let there was more stories that they had to tell, but they got a chance to end it. So it's the bittersweet commentary where you're glad that they got an ending, but you look and you see, that probably was going to branch off into another story, and that just even like especially Teen Titans, they laid the groundwork on so many stories. They got a chance to wrap it up by having Beast Boy and Raven kind of start connecting again, and there was the whole thing with with Connor, between Connor and Rose, that was going to go somewhere, and just there was other connections that could have and would have happened that I would have liked to have seen. But they did get a solid ending. They did get a way to kind of say, okay, this is it. Let's move on to the next thing, and we'll see what happens with the new DCU.
There's a lot of class in a number of the creative teams and how they ended their books. Just in the sense that exactly what you're saying is true. There's a lot of them where they had storylines they intended to go on much longer. Justice League of America is a great example of that. But, there's a lot of books, like Secret Six we talked about on the show. All the way through. Zatanna, I liked, her ending. I'm really enjoying just a lot. I'm enjoying reading a lot of these wrap-ups as they've been coming through. And that was one of the things that I really left an impression with me in August, was just how many creative teams put forth such a cool effort to try and make the ends as satisfying as possible and try to tie up as many storylines as possible and threads in more of a, clearly in some cases what was more of a compressed time, to give us kind of a satisfying conclusion to things we'd been following where necessary. It's not all books it was necessary to do that. But even the Bat books had, the Batman books had like this nice nod to what was going on. Like I liked that Batman single issue that was done by Nicieza, where it was kind of the whole Bat family, featured in the whole book. With a look back on Nightwing, straight on through. I thought that was a great issue. Kind of acknowledging that universe is moving on to the New 52, but that it's real clear that some of these tweaks are gonna, we're gonna be saying goodbye to some of the things that were a part of it. So that's one universe that I'm really curious to how certain things are going to be explained.
And Sean, the first week of releases are Action Comics, Animal Man, Batgirl, Batwing, Detective Comics, Green Arrow, Hawk and Dove, Justice League International, Men of War, OMAC, Static Shock, Stormwatch, and Swamp Thing.
It's a heck of a lineup.
That's the first week.
I'm excited for all those too. Like that, and that Men of War one is interesting because it's kind of the oddball of the bunch. Yeah. But I'm really intrigued by it. Like New Sergeant Rock, because that's one with Sergeant Rock, right? The new Sergeant Rock.
I believe so. Yeah. It's the modern day version.
Yeah, I'm into that because you know where that fits in with me. I've shared with it before. Kind of the way that Jonah Hex does. It's just something that's a little outside the box of what DC's doing. Animal Man I'm really intrigued by because I've always liked Animal Man. I've read Animal Man in trade, like a lot of the Morrison stuff and things like that, but I've never read Animal Man as a monthly other than when it's been like miniseries and stuff like Last Days of Animal Man and things like that, and then the minis where he was teamed up with Starfire and Adam Strange. That's been my exposure to reading Animal Man. I'm really excited to read that as a monthly. Cool book. Obviously Batgirl were Gail Simone junkies. Mm-hmm. Did you say Swamp Thing was in that list?
Yes.
Wow. So Jeff Lemire on Animal Man, if I remember correctly, and then Scott Snyder on Swamp Thing. Ooh. And then Detective Comics, that's the Tony Daniel book, right?
Yes.
I said, well, I don't, there's not a one of those. Hawk and Dove, I'm excited for. There's not a one of those that I'm not into. You know what I mean? Like all of those.
The only thing for me on this list is I don't know what to expect from OMAC.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. My main exposure to OMAC, being honest, has been with the OMAC project.
Yeah.
And Brother Eye from, that whole sequence of events from like Infinite Crisis and stuff. It wasn't, I didn't read the original OMAC. So I'm kind of excited for that one, but I'm walking in blind, like you are, which might not be such a bad thing. You know what I mean? That's like kind of be totally fresh for me because I didn't experience it the first time through. I don't know. I'm actually real curious. I'd love listeners who maybe were fans of classic OMAC. You've read all of those? Because I've got that. There was that hardcover they released. Did you get that? The Kirby OMAC hardcover. Did you get that when that came out?
No, I don't think so.
I did. I ended up getting that. I haven't had a chance to. It's one of those things. You and I talk about how things are stockpiled all the time. That's stockpiled. If I find some time, I'd like to start reading that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read it before next week, but maybe read some of it just to get kind of a flavor for it. So I'll probably do that. I'll try to read some of it before next week. Because you and I have a couple of episodes before we start our intensive look at the 52. So there'll be a little bit of a chance for me to start reading some of that before we start talking about it. So, because we got content already recorded. So I don't know. I'm really curious for OMAC. But you're right. I don't know what to feel either because I don't know much about the character. That's the one I know least about.
Yeah.
So I know everybody. I know of everybody else, and that would be yeah. You're right. There's kind of a feeling out process for that because we don't know what I know what the premise is, but I've never read it. So be fun. Actually, I want to shout out to everybody. Our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434. 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. And that's in the show notes. That's on our website in the About Us section. Every week it's in the show notes. So you can find our websites real quick. Just look for one of the episode threads, and it's right on there. It's contained in the podcast file and stuff like that. And depending on what your media player is, it probably shows up as you're listening to our episode. But, definitely get in, whether you agree, disagree, have different ideas. Something random, like the first call was all about Superboy Prime. Something random you just want to shout out that you're thinking about. Always feel free to do that. It doesn't have to be on the exact topic we're talking about on that show. It's always great to have different commentary on things that you guys are interested in. I really want to thank everyone for calling, especially a lot of these calls. I asked people exactly like what Mart said. I was looking for reactions from listeners. And there was a lot of interesting commentary on different experiences with these two issues right away. If anybody else has other commentary they'd like to share about this, please call them in. It doesn't have to be just on the episode we're chatting about. I'd love to hear more comments from people about this. It was very cool.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster.
Jim, our next episode is going to be up very early next week. Hopefully, I'm going to try to release it on Labor Day. We had friend of the show, Ted Sikora, join us, and we've already recorded this, we talked about Apama issue 2. That's the webcomic based off of Hero Tomorrow. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, it's at Hero Tomorrow. I was Hero Tomorrow. You can tell you and I have been recording for a while that I'm like this tongue-tied right now. HeroTomorrow.com. It's a free webcomic. And they have issue 1 and 2 both up there. Check it out. Apama's really cool. We've done episodes on it before, and Ted was kind enough to join us. We're going to be talking about what it's like as a film director to be publishing a comic now, and what life is like for Apama, and what's in store for the future for the webcomic. It's very cool. So Apama's a show favorite, and we're glad to have an opportunity to kind of take a little side jaunt to talk about webcomics in this digital age, because that's a great delivery method. And if you're not checking out the webcomics on the net, I can't recommend them enough. There's a lot of extremely cool webcomics. We have a section on our show website. Please click on them and check them out. There's some really terrific webcomics out there. And if you have a webcomic and you're a friend of the show, a lot of times or if you're a friend of the show and you're reading some cool webcomics and you want me to put some links to them up on our website to support those webcomics, please shoot me an email. I constantly am looking for new material to read. And I think this, webcomics are just kind of another cool delivery method for comic books. I'm enjoying reading them a lot. So, once again, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com, once again, offering that 50% off all of the 52 issues. Don't forget to order digitally from them, which I think is absolutely terrific, that you can order from a comic book retailer now, the digital one. So please do that. It doesn't cost you any more to do it. And if you're considering buying from the digital app, support our show sponsor, because they support us and help us to provide you the content every week, which is really great. And I want to shout out InStockTrades.com. Hardcovers, trade paperbacks, anything relating to comic books when it comes to books. InStockTrades.com has everything. It's an amazing and an extensive website. It's the first place I go. They've always got great discounts, and orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So on top of the amazing discounts that they offer on books, they're always offering free shipping. Do you still do that, Jim? Do you save up and grab $50 just so you get the free shipping? Yeah, I do it.
Yeah, I always bundle when I order from them, and it's for me, I figure if I'm getting the discount, per individual ordering and getting the free shipping on it, then I'm saving a little bit more money. I don't see it as, spending more, because I'm getting these couple books that I get anyways. Well, might as well lump them together, get that free shipping.
Well, see, that's just it. A lot of times there's hardcovers and things that I was eyeing when they were pre-orders, and I didn't have the money for pre-ordering it at the time. So I'll save up, and then, sometimes I'll bundle an order together, over a couple months stretch. And, it's by the time it's a couple hardcovers or something like that, especially if you're doing like an Absolute or something, you've automatically got free shipping on an Absolute. Yeah. I mean, that's, how cool is that? When you're getting a discount off of it, too. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. And we will see everyone, Jim, in a few days.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook, helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't